We now proceed to opening statements.
We now
Run
proceed.
state.
The
Thank you, Your Honor.
state.
May it please the court.
All right. Starting with Prosecutor Creighton Waters. Now we get a bigger view of the courtroom. We will not see the jurors.
On the evening
We should see
of
Creighton.
June 7th, 2021,
Damn it, that audio sucks.
at the defendant's property off Moselle Road in Colleton County,
Here we go.
his son, Paul Murdaugh,
Somebody take a
was
time
standing in a
check.
small feed room and some kennels they had on the property. About 8:50 p.m., and the defendant over there, Alex Murdaugh, took a 12-gauge shotgun and shot him in the shoulder, in the chest and the shoulder
Woo!
with buckshot.
He's just coming in
The
hot.
evidence is going to show it was a 1,000,000-to-1 shot. He could have survived that, but after that, another shot went up under his head and did catastrophic damage
Oh shit! It did blow off
to
the back
his
of his
brain
head.
and his head.
Shit.
The evidence is going to show that Paul collapsed right outside that feed room. And just moments later, he picked up a .300 Blackout, which is a type of ammunition, but an AR-style rifle. And the evidence is going to show that the family had multiple weapons throughout the property. Picked up that .300 Blackout rifle and opened fire on his wife, Maggie, just feet away near some sheds that used to be a hangar. Pow, pow. 2 shots, abdomen in the leg, and took her down.
Oh,
And after that, there were additional shots, including 2 shots to the head that, again, did catastrophic damage.
This is the court reporter.
Killed her instantly. The evidence is going to show that neither Paul nor Maggie had any defensive wounds. Neither one of them had any
I didn't
defensive
have
wounds.
any time. That's
That they
interesting.
Didn't see a threat coming from their attacker.
That's exactly right.
And the evidence is also going to show that both Maggie and Paul were shot at extremely close range. The evidence is going to show it's called stippling. It's almost like a tattoo, that when you get shot very close to a weapon, it leaves marks that the forensic
Hot.
pathologist can see.
From the gases.
They were shot at close range and they did not have defensive wounds.
Indicates it's not a stranger. That's what you argue.
And the evidence is going to show that the defendant, Alex Murdaugh over there, told anyone who would listen that he was never at those kennels. But the evidence is also going to show
Oh, what's he got in his
from
hand?
these things that every one of us, most of us carry around in our pocket,
Cell phone evidence.
that he was there.
The cell
He was
phone.
there just minutes before, with Maggie and Paul, just minutes before their cell phones go silent forever and ever.
Before their cell phones go silent
Despite what
forever.
he told people, I was never at the kennels, the cell phones are going to show otherwise.
That's powerful.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Creighton Waters. I'm with the Attorney General's office and I'll be the lead prosecutor. I introduced myself before. With me is David Fernandez, Savannah Gow, John Metters, Don Zelinka, John Conrad, and Johnny James. A lot of lawyers. This is a big case. It's a very complicated case, and that's why there's so many people working on it. Sitting back in the row, we have David Owen, who's the
The
lead
evidence
investigator.
I wanted was the
We have
cell phone
Lieutenant
evidence.
Charles Gent,
That's what
who's
I
one of the
wanted.
agents,
I've been saying for
Special
weeks.
Agent Ryan Kelly and Special Agent Peter Rudolphy. Some
What
of the agents that are working on the case.
does the cell
as well
phone
as
say?
Investigator Isaac Toledo is working on the case as
The
well.
cell phone
There's some
says
of the
he was
witnesses that
there
you'll hear from.
For moments
As we go through this case.
before Maggie and
The
Paul
judge
were
talked to you
silenced
a little
forever.
bit about him being the judge of the law. And he gives you the law. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the legal concepts before I turn back to those facts. Just remember, though,
The
he's
evidence
the
I
judge of the
want to
law.
see most.
So you take what he says, but I'm going to explain to you some of the legal issues from my perspective before we talk a little bit more about the evidence in the case. And the first thing is right before you went to lunch, y'all all took an oath.
Oh yes, I said it on court TV. multiple
Everybody in
times.
this courtroom who's got involvement in this case takes an oath. You know, attorneys take an oath to become an attorney, take
Just like
another
he
oath to become a
should've.
prosecutor, judge takes another oath to become a judge, witnesses take oath on the stands, law enforcement take oaths to become law enforcement, but y'all took an oath as well. And
This
the
is gonna be a
reason
hard
why
case.
Is that y'all have the most important job in this courtroom. Every
No,
one of
no.
you raised your hand and
He's
said
excited.
that you would well and truly try
He,
this case.
that's not nerves.
And
That's
it's the most
excitement.
important job here, because like the
It's
judge
the
said,
same-
he's the judge of the law, but y'all are the judge of the facts.
Yeah.
Y'all are going to listen to what comes from that witness stand.
Maybe everybody who would be in the courtroom
Judge
is just here.
Those facts. But you also have to be mindful of that oath. That oath requires you to do that hard job, to make that decision, to call the strike when you see it. It's the same oath. It's just as important as any other oath. This might be the most important in this courtroom. The judge mentioned reasonable doubt, and he's exactly right. It's the state's burden to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. That is a cornerstone of our country. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a burden we welcome. It's what we want. It's a system that has been well
No time
tested and
limit.
true, and we take that burden.
He's spending
to
a little
prove
time
the
telling them
case
about their
beyond
job
reasonable doubt.
and their
I wanna
duty
remind
and the burden.
everyone that the emphasis is on reasonable. Okay, it's not any doubt, it is reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt is often defined, and again, you listen to the judge how he
Civil.
defines it, but reasonable
Civil
doubt
attorney.
is a doubt that would cause a reasonable person to hesitate to act. To hesitate to act. And when you hear the evidence coming from this stand about this particular case, I submit to you, you won't hesitate to act. Again, remember
That was a good
emphasis is on
tie around.
reasonable and reasonable doubt. On that 911 call and on the body worn cameras, pay attention to what he says. Look at how he's acting. But he says within a few minutes of each one of those, he says, this is about the boat case.
There it is.
This is about the boat case. And you're going to hear
About the boat
some
case.
of what was going on in Alex Murdaugh's life leading up to that day. Stuff that happened that very day, stuff that was leading up, a perfect storm that was gathering, much like the storms that are coming outside today. Listen for that evidence. Listen to that gathering storm that all came to a head on June 7th, 2021, the day the evidence will show he killed Maggie and Paul.
The gathering storm. That's interesting.
This has been a long, exhaustive investigation. And it's going to be a fairly long trial because it's complicated. It's a journey.
I mean, a few weeks is not that
There's a
long.
lot of
Craig.
aspects to this case. There's a lot of factors to this case. But like a lot of things that are complicated, when you start to put them all together, piece them together like a puzzle, all of a sudden the picture emerges and it's really simple.
Creighton, we can see your text, bro.
It's really simple.
The jury's like, is he bringing home dinner?
Once
I
we
got
get to the end of
questions.
that journey, and you have a chance to deliberate, the evidence is going to be such that you're going to reach the inescapable conclusion that Alec murdered Maggie and Paul, that he was the storm, that the storm was coming for them, and the storm arrived on June 7th, 2021, just like the storms that are heading here right now, that they died as a result, beyond any reasonable doubt. Thank you.
That's the end of the state's opening statement. We're going to get the opening statement from the defense. I'm interested to see.
defense.
This,
Your Honor.
that was a powerful opening. The timeline was important. We now know a lot more about the cell phone evidence, and that cell phone evidence, I think, could carry this case. It's going to show where he was and where he wasn't. And if he turned it off, it's going to show
My name
that.
is Dick Harpootlian.
Don't introduce yourself first.
Myself to y'all and our attorneys, the three other attorneys, Jim Griffin,
How long was that?
Barber, Margaret Fox. It is our honor to represent Alex Murdaugh,
Because we believe he's
or
innocent.
Murdaugh, depending on how you pronounce it.
I like that it's either way.
I say it's our honor because I submit to you what you've heard from the Attorney General as facts are not. They're his theories, his conjecture. Now stand up. This is Alex Murdaugh. And Alex was the loving father of Paul and the loving husband of Maggie.
Loving father and husband.
You're not going to hear a single witness say that their relationship, Maggie and Alex's relationship, were anything other than loving. You're going to hear about how they went to a baseball game the weekend before. You're going to hear about their relationship. You're going to see texts and emails indicating a loving.
Sit down, dude. He's like, can I sit down now? Yeah, sit down.
Paul, the apple of his eye. You're going to see a video somewhere between 7:30 and 8 o'clock the night of the murders, with Paul and Alec riding around looking at some trees they planted. It's a Snapchat that Paul sent to other people because the trees were not planted very well. They were cantilevering over. They're laughing. They're having a good time.
Doesn't mean Alec
That would
wasn't
be
plotting to kill him.
About an hour before, the Attorney General says he swatted them. When I say he swatted them, when they were swatted, and no question, Paul Murdaugh was
Graphic.
shot
This is going to be graphic.
twice with buckshot, 12-gauge buckshot, once in the chest. And by the way, that shot would indicate it was in the chest and came out under his arm, like somebody that might have been holding up their hands. So when he says no defensive wounds, he perhaps is being held at shotgun. I mean, I can make the same sort of speculation that the Attorney General can, because that's all he's doing is speculating. What we do know is 12-gauge, fairly close range shot to the chest. He must have been turned because it comes out under his arm. There's wadding, if you're familiar with a shotgun, under his arm. The second shot ended up, and there's going to be some question about the direction of that shot, but ended up entering his skull cavity, and the gases from that shot literally exploded his head like a watermelon hit with a sledgehammer.
Oh, God.
All that was left was the front of his face. Everything else was
Herculean.
gone. His brain exploded out of his head, hit the ceiling in the shed, and dropped to his feet. Horrendous. Horrible.
I told you this was going to be
Butchering.
graphic.
So, to find Alex Murdaugh guilty of murdering his son, you're going to have to accept that within an hour of having a extraordinarily bonding, you can see it in the Snapchat, that he executes him in a brutal fashion. Not believable. Not believable. Now, Maggie is shot running. There's no defensive wounds because she's shot running, and after she falls to the ground and has one bullet that has hit her and probably traveled up and hit her brain, she's on the ground, and whoever the perpetrator was walked up, took that AR, and put one in the back of her head. Executed. Executed. Why? This is going to be interesting because we don't know why. He doesn't know why. He's got theories of this and theories of that, but why? Number one. Number two, what was it in that hour between when he's yucking it up with Paul? And let me say this to you. His record, he was interviewed, he comes home and finds, there's no question about this, they've got telemetry from his car. He left the house at 9:06, returns at 10:01 after seeing his mother who has dementia. Now remember, that day, his father, who is dying, is taken to the hospital. Mom's home alone with the housekeeper. Perfectly reasonable for him to want to go see her. And later than usual. Because
Or
his father's
both.
not there. He's in the hospital. He dies 2 days later. His father dies 2 days later. So the question is, if he leaves at 9:06 and he's back at 10:01, he literally, I mean, and he can account, the cars and the cell phone records account for where he was between 9:06 and 10:01. Now the cell phone records, and you're going to hear this from their own experts, are incomplete. They're incomplete.
That's
And we're to
interesting.
submit, one of the reasons they're incomplete, and by the way, how do they find Maggie's phone? Maggie's phone was thrown out on the side of the road about a quarter of a mile away from, a little bit more, maybe a half a mile, from the Moselle property.
Was it
Thrown
in the
out on side of
direction he
road.
was driving afterwards,
They
though?
found it by using Find My iPhone. And the way they did that, they had to open it or have access. Who gave them the code to open the phone? Now, Murdaugh. And it's not destroyed, it's just thrown on the side of the phone. What you're also going to see
Who picked up
is
her
that
phone?
Alex Murdaugh was calling that phone at 9:06.
Yeah, that-
You're going to have to evaluate the testimony you hear from this witness stand with a critical eye. Critical eye.
Don't touch the
I mean,
thermostat.
if you've got uncontested scientific evidence, you accept
He
it.
does like to
I've
wander.
got no problem with that. These cell phone records he keeps talking about, I would say you are not necessarily accurate.
This is not necessarily accurate. It's not going to do it.
I will also tell you that there's going to be a bunch of people, and I will, that have been promised something or threatened with something that may take the witness stand and say something. But I tell you what they're not going to say. They're not going to say they saw him kill him.
Promised what?
They're not going to say
Threatened
that
what?
they were involved in it. They're not going to say anything that would give you a comfort level in their testimony. Now, all of you have indicated that you will follow the law.
Witness is
say
being
this-
promised something?
One last time. He didn't do it. He didn't kill Butcher, his son and wife. And you need to put from your mind any suggestion that he did.
It's not exactly how that works.
You've been picked because you said you could be fair. You were picked because you said you could follow the law. You were picked because Alex Murdaugh believes that you can be fair. Now, if during this process over the next however long we're here,
Whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean, however long?
I say something or do something, which most certainly based on my career, I will do, that irritates you or angers you.
I will annoy the fuck out of you. Good. Let's get that out. Let's get that out. Let's get that out now.
Don't hold that against Alex. Hold it against me. If I say something that offends you in some way, don't hold that against Alex. Hold it against me. Remember, as you sit there right now, in your mind, he didn't do it. He
is managing
innocent.
expectations. This is an interesting way to bang on about the.
Require a verdict.
He's like
of not
right up
guilty
there
from
on the
you.
jury. This is
That's the law.
a very
That's your oath.
interesting way to get into the presumption of innocence.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to send you to the jury room for a break while I discuss scheduling with everyone.
Yeah, what are we doing
Please
next?
do not discuss the case. Is that where the problem is now with, that you all have been working on? Or is that now been resolved with that company?
The problem with STR and
I'm very interested.
transcript, the daily transcript, that is working fine. When we had to move some of the equipment around earlier, it messed up some of the wiring.
For the audio?
Yes,
Oh,
All right. And is that what you're working on, said you'll be working on overnight or
We're
something?
gonna, yes, sir, we're gonna come up with a solution that's independent of any of the court-provided facilities, and we'll come up with something.
tech
I'm
issues.
gonna get a guitar amplifier if I need to. Yeah, we'll get something done.
Tracks.
Is there anything else before we break for the day?
Say, Your Honor.
Nothing for the defense. 9:30, am I correct about that?
9:30.
9:30.
Court will be in recess till 9:30.
Okay. Court is in recess, officially in recess. And with that, we are wrapped for the day. There are some tech issues still going on in court. I I am very curious to see who he's talking. It looks like he might be talking in the direction of his son. I believe this is his sister in the polka dot shirt. And we are seeing some of the family in court. And we're going to see, of course, yeah, it did look like he was talking to his son standing right there. I'm sure we will see some of the reporters paying attention to what is being said in the casual way that this individual is just on trial for a double homicide and allowed to just turn around and talk to the gallery. Deputies. He's on trial for murder. And he's just casually having a chit chat. It's kind of wild. Telling the sheriff to hold on. Like, I'm not ready yet. No. No defendant in the world, no defendant in the world that I have ever seen has been allowed. Yet what's in your pocket? No, you can't just have fucking Tic Tacs. Who gave you the Tic Tacs? Deputy, take the Tic Tacs. Oh my God. Oh, he can't just take whatever he wants into custody. Don't let this man get away with anything. It's the unreal. Sir, you are on trial for a double homicide. You're not in trial as a lawyer. You're the defendant. Act like it. You don't run this. What? It's not a concert. This hurts my head. But he's absolutely acting like he owns this county, like he owns this courthouse, and like he owns this courtroom. And I think that he believes he does. So the gunshots alone.
Okay, welcome everybody who is here. Technology is not on my side tonight. I don't know why, but Firefox crashed twice in a row at the beginning of the stream, so my apologies. Hopefully it won't crash again. It seems to be going okay, although maybe there's some glitching. I don't know. As y'all are fully aware, it tends to be pretty random in terms of how these things can go, and the technology gods, I guess, our fate is in their hands. So anyhow, we have the first day done. We have the opening statements are done. And so I just wanted to say hi as we begin getting into the actual testimony. Here we are on day 2. And as we just to preface this, during this trial, if you haven't seen it, normally in trials, both sides have stipulated for certain foundational evidence to come in without having to go through the chain of custody. They've agreed, yes, it was done properly, blah, 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 and they can just kind of get it in. In this trial, the defense on purpose decided that they were not going to stipulate. So the vast majority of the first number of days in this trial was these foundational witnesses slogging through this evidence with the chain of custody, where literally it's just going through and giving everything a number and admitting it one thing after another after another. So that type of stuff I have excluded for obvious reasons. But basically I just wanted to go ahead and say that, we're going to kind of jump to what in my opinion is where some of the more important relevant testimony starts. But we'll be sure to go through all the stuff that is relevant in terms of the evidence and everything. But I wanted to just kind of say hi, and what I'll do is, I'll probably stop or pause the video at certain times to, if I have certain commentary, or if you guys have questions, put them in the chat. I'll be happy to answer questions. This is my favorite trial of all time, and I have spent a lot of time studying everything related to all of the related cases, as well as all of the family history. So I'm really happy to be revisiting this trial and watching it from the beginning with you guys and whoever will be able to join us. I hope this will be a lot of fun and be informative. And there's also counters running at the bottom of the screen there. There's a lot of key phrases that come up a lot of times in this trial. So I'm going to be keeping track of those just because it's fun. And we did the same thing with the Depp v. Heard as well. So, okay, without further ado, let's continue on with day 2. And thank you guys for being here.
Might not have freaked out the dogs in this case. So we've got, the jury's not in the room yet to see him turning around smiling at his son, but I don't know how he's sitting in there watching witnesses when he's on the witness list. If I'm the prosecution, I got questions.
An email was sent to my chambers at 5:52 p.m. yesterday by
Chris Wilson.
Oh
no!
I don't know whether it's
he's a
Chris
witness
Wilson who's on the witness list or not, complaining about the violation of my court order prohibiting the disclosure of the identity of jurors. Did not respond to the email, and I'll make the email part of the record in the case. And if counsel can look at it.
What is happening? Who violated the court order? Don't cut the microphones. Why is a witness emailing the judge that somebody disclosed the identities of the jurors the day that witnesses are starting? What in the fuckery afoot is happening? Chris Wilson, by the way, in this case, is an individual who had cases with Alex Murdaugh, who the payment to Chris Wilson is one of the things that the law firm was sus about, and so it's integrally interwoven into this. So I am so confused. I'm making a note. Email to chambers. They'll be able to tell immediately if it is the Chris Wilson on the witness list from the email address. We are starting off early with drama. Wow. Counsel, I got an email to chambers at 5:25 last night that someone has violated my court order with disclosure of identity of jurors. This is the kind of, why are you smiling? This is the kind of thing that is a concern in a small community. This is absolutely an issue. He did look surprised. This is wild. His face, the judge's face says it's too early for this shit.
And of course, exhibit number 2.
That's what his face says to me.
Any comment by the state or the defense?
No, Your Honor, none from Ms. Murdaugh.
None from the state, Your Honor.
My name is Chad McDowell. The last name is spelled M-C-D-O-W-E-L-L.
Corporal McDowell, how you doing today?
Are you
Good.
a Chad?
Tell the jury where you work.
You like it?
I work for College County Sheriff's Office. I'm assigned to the road patrol, the K-9 handler.
Okay, and can you just
He's
give
the
us a
K-9
quick
handler.
background of who you are, where you grew up, and how you ended up in your career in law enforcement?
Sure. I grew up in Colleton County, went to Colleton County High School, went to college at Tri-County Technical College, where I studied criminal justice. Once I reached age, I came home, was hired by Colleton County Sheriff's Office, left for a couple of years to go work for Jasper County, and then came back to Colleton. I've been assigned to road patrol at Colleton.
All right, and what year did you first start working for Colleton County Sheriff's Department, or began your law enforcement career?
2016.
And what's your current, you said you're a corporal now, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Chad, I see you.
Assignment? What are your duties?
I'm still assigned to road patrol. I'm a K-9 handler.
All right, and you say K-9. Explain to the jury what that is.
He's the doggo
So I have a K-9 that is
handler.
assigned to me.
We
We
love
respond
the
to
doggo
certain
handlers.
calls for, if we're requested by another deputy, for narcotics searches for suspects, things of that
I think
matter.
we're going to see a lot of that in
K-9
this
is a
case.
dog, correct?
That's correct.
So far,
what's your
both
dog's
officers
name?
grew up
Eva.
here.
Eva? What kind of dog is Eva?
He's a Belgian Malinois.
Malinois?
Yep.
Is that kind of like a German Shepherd?
No, it's a Belgian
Kind of
Malinois.
short-haired, pointy ears.
Okay.
No, it's a Belgian Malinois. Belgian Malinois are
Is
used quite a
Evo
lot
typically with you when you're out on
for
patrol?
canine.
Yes, sir.
Was Evo with you the night of June 7th, 2021?
Yes, sir.
Were you a corporal then at that time?
No, sir, I was a deputy.
All right. And who was on the squad that you were on?
Sergeant Daniel Green, Corporal Elise Janicki, myself, and Deputy Pruitt, Cody Pruitt.
All right. And so who was your immediate supervisor?
It would have been Corporal Janicki,
Okay.
I was
And then
waiting for him to
above
be
that
like,
was
and Chad, in
Sergeant
your
Green.
free time, do you
And
run
then above
Spartan
that-
races?
Lieutenant Nettles.
All right. And then above that?
What's your favorite
Captain
restaurant?
Krause.
Okay.
It would be completely inappropriate.
What shift were you working the night of June 7th, 2021?
Yes, sir, I was.
And that was in Colleton County?
Yes, sir.
And what shift were you working that night?
Night shift.
I speak from personal
Did you
experience.
ultimately respond
You do not want a
to
Belgian
call for
Malinois
service
police
at
dog in court.
4147 Moselle Road?
Yes, sir.
It
You
does not
actually
go
went
well.
there?
I did.
And did you come to the incident location at the kennels at that property at 4147 Moselle Road?
I did.
Is that in Colleton County?
It is.
We got a picture of Evo, and now I can see why he has some German Shepherdy qualities. He has some German Shepherdy qualities. Court is just like, we are moving through these foundational witnesses. Go, 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 go. They're like, the court's like, we got 15 minutes. And what we're going to do is call another witness. Okay, next prosecution witness.
You affirm the testimony about to give the court in this trial shall be the true safety God.
I do.
Take a seat and stand. State your name again for the record. Spell your last name.
Jonathan Van Houten, VanHouten.
Mr. Van Allen.
Secret Service.
United States Secret Service.
All right, and how long have you employed there?
This April will be 3 years.
And are you currently a law enforcement agent?
I am not.
Okay. And you're a civilian employee of Secret Service?
I am.
All right, but you do have a background in law enforcement, correct?
Yes. For the last 10 years, I was assigned as a digital forensic examiner with U.S. Secret Service.
Okay.
Digital
And you were a
forensic
task force
examiner.
officer
Correct.
during that time?
Yes.
And you retired
So
from
he
the
was on
police department when?
April 20th, 2020.
He was like, fuck this shit, I'm out.
And in this case, you were provided a phone by, I believe, Britt Dove, is that correct?
All right, we are now
Lieutenant Dove,
to
correct.
the digital forensic examiner, or to a digital forensic examiner. This is not uncommon where you will get somebody who works for local law enforcement and then will be on loan to federal, and then he retired and now he's a civilian contractor with the Secret
You
Service,
recognize this document, sir?
still doing the same thing he was doing before. Which means he probably gets his retirement
This is
from
the
his police
SLED law
department
enforcement,
and then
or
paid by
Stockton Law
Secret
Enforcement
Service.
Division chain of
Not a
custody
bad
that was
gig.
submitted to me by Lieutenant Dove.
All right. And you recognize your signature on that form?
I did sign this one.
What day did you sign that form?
March 21st, 2022.
Okay. All right. At this time, state would move Exhibit 271 as evidence. Admit it.
This is an evidence photo that I acquired of the device that was submitted to me.
You took that picture?
I did.
And do we see a sticker on the back of that phone?
There's a yellow sticker on the phone.
What is it? Can you read that sticker, please?
It appears to be some type of case number, evidence number, identified as an Apple iPhone, the model number with a SIM, and an agency case number.
And if you just read the.
Which phone is this? Is this
the
Paul's phone? Or we
case number
assuming
and the
this is
item
Paul's
number.
phone?
7021-0204, item number 10.
Thank you, sir. So I believe you said March 29th of 2022 is when Lieutenant Dove provided you that phone, sir?
March 21st.
Excuse me, yes, 21st. All right. And why did he bring it to you?
It's my understanding that the phone was locked and SLED requested assistance of the Secret Service to unlock the device.
And at Secret Service, at that time, did you have tools available that could potentially unlock that phone?
Yes,
And did SLED have those tools, at least on that date?
at that time they did not.
Okay. All right. And what tool did you use to attempt to unlock that phone?
For this, for my unlock attempt, I used a tool called Celebrite Premium.
Okay. And sell by premium is a way to potentially break into, lock phones, correct?
That is the only use for that tool.
All right.
And just generally speaking, how does a Celebrate Premium attempt to unlock a locked phone?
It uses its proprietary software in an attempt to brute force the device.
Okay, what does brute force
SLV,
mean?
it
Brute
depends on the
force
case.
is if we don't have
I'm not
the
surprised that
code,
feds are
we will
involved.
attack the device,
How they got to Secret Service
attack the
versus
data on the device. to try to
FBI,
brute
I don't
force the
know,
passcode to get
but
the
it's
code
not
to unlock the
unusual
device.
to have federal law enforcement help
And a device that's
because
locked,
local law
why
enforcement did
does it
not
need to
have
be
this tool
unlocked
at
for
that
the
time.
access to data?
Sounds like they do
what
now.
underlying condition exists that prevents you from seeing the data?
Well, for Apple iPhone devices, there are two types of locks.
Valerie,
There
it's
are
my
before first
understanding it's
unlock and
very
after
expensive.
First unlock.
And I don't know
Before
how they
first
determine who
unlock,
gets it.
Is
they
the
have
phone
to
is either
let people
powered
know what
down,
it's for.
it's been turned off and rebooted, or a code has been entered in too many times incorrectly. If you were to, an analogy for it, if you think
two
of it
types
as
of
a
lock.
bank vault, it is the before first unlock, at which have to brute force the device, is like the big steel door.
Okay. And then underlying data is encrypted, correct? Otherwise. Okay. And you would not be able to read that data, correct?
I have to unlock the device to get to the data to decrypt it.
Okay. And so Subride Premium, you said attempted to do a brute force unlock, correct?
Yes.
And ultimately, was that attempt successful?
It was successful because I generated a predefined dictionary to attempt first prior to the tool using its own dictionary.
Okay.
Oh,
And what do you mean by that? What does that mean?
Well, humans are creatures of habit. They like to use numbers that are relevant to them. Most people will use their date of birth,
family
an
data birth.
anniversary, a child's birth, the death of a parent as the access code. So what we do generally is we get as many social engineered codes or dates that are relevant to the particular phone.
It's also
that
how
we will
hackers
attempt
get your
first.
shit, by the way.
Once that attempt
The
is no
social
longer
engineering,
viable,
putting your birthday on the internet,
tool
putting
uses
your
its own
kids'
dictionary to
birthdays on
start
the
a
internet,
hardcore
and then using
brute force
those.
process.
And
This is how
absent kind of getting
hackers
lucky
social engineer
with the
you.
preceded number, if the Subride Premium has to brute force its way through and unlock the phone, how long would that take?
So for a 4-digit phone, if you had a 4-digit numeric PIN code, we're limited to an attempt of 146.
Michael Pepper,
maybe
that's very
145
smart.
attempts per day. So a 4-digit code has a maximum possible numeric value of 10,000 attempts. So at 146
hard.
attempts a day, it would roughly take a little over 2 months to 68 days to unlock that phone. Adding 2 extra numbers to a 6-digit, going from a 4-digit to a 6-digit, there are approximately 1 million possibilities now.
Y'all use
At
6-digit
146
codes.
attempts per day, it could take upwards 19 years.
6-digit codes,
All right.
folks.
Now, you said that you can only do 146 attempts a day, is that correct?
Based on technology at the time and current technology is progressing, so it is getting faster.
Okay. Why is the
Digit
software limited to
code
just
or
146
more.
attempts a day?
This is a security protocol chip built into Apple. It limits the time frame that
He said
somebody
19
can
years.
attempt to brute force a device. The first it's an average of 1 attempt every 15 minutes.
Apple limits brute force.
All right. But ultimately, you said you seeded several numbers into Cellbrite Premium to give it some potential guesses first before just.
That's why it
start
takes so
going
long. You
through
can only
all
try
the
once every
numbers,
15
right?
minutes.
Yes, once I start the brute force process, there's an option for me to enter my own dictionary or numbers that are relevant, that I think is relevant to the user of the device. In this case, I entered a number that successfully unlocked the phone rather quickly.
Okay. And what was that number associated with?
I believe the number was associated with the date of birth of Paul Murdaugh.
All right. And so once you successfully unlocked the phone, what did you do with it, sir?
So it was a
I
it was
notified
some
Lieutenant
variation of his
Dove
own date
that
of birth.
the phone successfully unlocked. I advised him that I was going to be getting a full file system extraction since I
So
still
they
have
got
the phone
into
in my
Paul's phone.
possession. Lieutenant Dove provided me with an external hard drive to place the extraction on, at which time I did.
So you did a full file extraction and placed it on a hard drive, correct?
Correct.
Now, did you examine the contents of that full file extraction?
I did not. SLED has their own examiners.
How many of you just changed
We
your
did the
cell phone
extraction for them, but they
passwords?
analyzed the phone.
Just pop
And
a
so
1 in the chat if you just changed your cell phone
Data you
password.
placed on a hard drive and provided to Britt Dove.
is that substantially the exact same data that you extracted from Paul's phone?
It is.
Alex
Has it
Murdaugh
changed
did
in
not
any
provide the code to
significant
Paul's
It has
phone,
not.
only to Maggie's phone. He didn't know Paul's. He didn't know Paul's code. And Paul was 22, so it's not unusual that he didn't know Paul's code, but he didn't know Paul's code. And then that seemed authentic to
I'm gonna
me.
hand you State's Exhibit 273.
He gave Maggie's only. This is interesting information. And
You
this is
recognize
also
that
how
document,
people
sir?
go through social media to socially engineer hacking. Hacking is much more
This is the
successful
South
when
Carolina Law
socially
Enforcement
engineered.
Division chain of custody, where I returned the phone
I
to
find this very
Lieutenant Dove.
All right, and you recognize your signature on it?
I do.
All right, and what date did you sign that?
March 24th, 2022.
All right, and you then provided Paul's phone back to
I love forensic evidence.
Lieutenant Duff, correct?
Correct.
At this time, State would move to enter Exhibit 273 into evidence.
Submit it.
Dan
Okay,
Bell is like, I already have a
and
16
I'm gonna show you
digit
what's
code.
been
It'll
marked
take
as
179 years to
I
unlock your
believe this
phone.
is 274.
I'm glad to see so many of you
You
just like,
recognize that,
shit,
officer?
I'm changing. I'm changing my passcode immediately.
Yes, this is the phone I received.
Okay, and that sticker on the back,
It matches the photograph that I took.
the photograph we put in evidence, the sticker on this phone matches that. correct?
It does.
Good morning, Lieutenant Duff.
Good morning.
We got a lot to talk about with
Right.
Mr. Dove.
We
Lieutenant
were talking
Dove.
about Maggie's phone at the end of the evening last night, correct?
Yes, sir, we were.
Before we move on, I want to cover just a couple more quick things.
Yes, please.
And then we'll move on.
We're fascinated by Lieutenant
I'm
Dove.
going to show you State's Exhibit 283 again.
Please let it be a
And this
summary
was
timeline.
the detailed timeline for Maggie's phone. correct?
Detailed timeline.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to flip to,
Charlie, I agree with you. Charlie in the chat said phones don't just stop receiving data. Yep. And we know that Paul and Maggie's phone are receiving data at that time. We'll know where Alex connected when he turns it off and turns it back on. We know that Alex's phone is not receiving data according to opening statements from 8:09 to 9:02. But at 9:02, his phone starts receiving data. At 9:02, there is activity and steps on Maggie's phone. But at 8:55 is when those 59 steps
4529.
happen.
Take a look at 4529, please. And I'm going to put it up on the screen.
So I think they're trying to, I assume
Yes, sir.
that they're going to start nailing down this timeline and getting to the relevant points of Maggie's timeline. So when they go to Paul's and Alex's timeline later today, it's going to all make sense together. He could have been out of range. Lou, I agree he could have been out of range, but he's there at the house. And he says he's at the house and nobody else is out of range. So if nobody else is at a house,
It's at the bottom, very bottom.
if nobody else's phone is out of range at the house and he's at the house and he
Can you read
says
that,
he's at the
sir?
house,
Yes, sir, I can.
then we got a problem.
And this is a log entry, correct?
Yes, sir. This appears to be a
Which is why I
log entry from
mentioned-
the data usage SQLite database.
Which is why I mentioned Alec,
And in
And-
the far right column there, what?
Maggie, and Paul's phone are still
In
receiving
the
data.
far right column, as I look at it, it says com.apple.datausage.findmyiphone. And then it's got Wi-Fi in 0, Wi-Fi out 0.
Okay. And what time did that data entry occur on Maggie's phone?
That data usage entry occurred at 10:05:13 p.m.
Okay. And what
What?
does that tell you, in your opinion?
That in the
What day?
background, Find My iPhone was using data on the phone.
Okay. Does this information or any information you've looked at in your investigation tell you exactly why the data be used at that time?
No, sir. It could have just been a background app that was running that had been open from previously in the day.
Could it have been that Find My iPhone being triggered from elsewhere?
It could have been.
They have a cell
But you
phone
can't tell for
extender,
certain with in your opinion.
is what we
No, sir. I
understand
cannot tell if it was running in
From
the background
Verizon's.
or if somebody was accessing it.
Okay, thank you.
So Find My iPhone
And again,
tries to
referencing
access or
Maggie's
accesses Wi-Fi at 10:05.
phone, one thing that we have not talked about yet.
911's
is
called
any
at 10:06.
location- Or any location points from that night, have we?
No, sir.
All right. And in fact, in your analysis of her phone, at least for the night in question, did you discover any precise GPS location points?
From which there are several different databases that location information would be from.
He's like, well,
From the
actually,
cache database, I didn't find anything for that night. It looks like previously from the examination that she'd used a map to go to an appointment or to a location, and that information was obtained.
Okay, and that was from the afternoon, correct?
Yes, so that was from earlier in the day.
All right. But at least in
Same.
terms of precise GPS location for that night, your investigation didn't find any on her phone, correct?
No, sir.
For the majority of apps we see on the screen, how are location settings set?
For the ones pictured on the screen, there's the majority of them are set to while using.
And so in your opinion, knowing that and knowing what you've investigated in her database, why don't we see a lot of location data on her phone for the night in question?
It could have been from those apps not being accessed. It whether running in the background from previous in the day or not being cleared out or not started at a particular time of that day.
So Maggie's phone was not continuously recording location information, okay?
Not from the apps in the cache database it was.
But you don't have anything in that cache database, correct?
Not from that day, no, sir.
Because while she's out at Moselle, would she have been using her map to navigate?
No, sir.
well, it seems like.
So her
that she
phone was
wouldn't
fairly
be.
well locked down when it came to location, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's fair. So I'm curious to see what happens when Alex's phone at
We'll move
9:02
on.
starts receiving data again and how that correlates. Yesterday's evidence that was kind of chilling, if you believe that he did this, was the "call me babe" text. If that's not normally the way he texts, that would be very interesting to know. And it's chillingly sad if you think, you know what, I don't think he did this at all. I don't think he was involved. Then I think a lot of you might be in the middle where you're like, I think he had help. And that's going to be hard for the state too. This is another cell phone.
And what is that?
Worst unboxing ever.
This item is an Apple iPhone. It was submitted to me with a SIM card and a black case on it
When was it submitted to you?
in September of 2021.
And have you had an opportunity?
I'm
to
assuming that's
examine
Paul's
that?
phone.
Yes, sir, I have.
And in your examination, were you able to determine who owns that phone?
Yes, sir. According to the account information I obtained from that phone, it belongs to Alex Murdaugh.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Your Honor, at this time.
It's Alex's phone.
The state would move Exhibit 285 into evidence.
After they downloaded his phone, when did they take his phone? Sitting in court, that is John Marvin, Alex's brother, is my
This time, the
understanding.
state will move to enter Exhibit 287 into evidence.
Okay. Submit it. Without objection.
All right, let's take a look at Alex's call logs.
You've heard nothing about the operating
and-
system on the phones or what operating
Monitor.
systems they've updated to, so we just don't know
Defense has an
about
objection, but
proximity alerts.
State would have
Yet.
moved to place this under seal to protect phone numbers that might appear.
The murders happened
I've
June
located
7th.
it.
Based on the prosecution's timeline, it looks like right at between 8:44 and 8:49 p.m. is when Paul and then Maggie's cell phones locked and were not reaccessed, even though they were actively in the middle of using their phones. So we're right there in that 8:44 to 8:49 timeline. I know,
This was
right?
sent to Rogan, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
So this is a text to Rogan.
The text said.
It says, call me.
Rogan had been texting Maggie and had frantically been trying to get in touch with Paul. Well, I can't say frantic, had been repeatedly trying to get in touch with Paul about the dog. And he told police he was doing that.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 289. I'm going to ask if you recognize this.
Yes, sir. This is a Celebrite report that I prepared. with timeline events for Alex Murdaugh's phone. The date filter was set for just the day of June 7th, 2021.
Did it take steps? Does it take steps? For those of you asking who Rogan is, he is one of Paul's best friends. He lives out near where Moselle is. He
Yes, sir, I
a
do.
dog that was
What
staying
is
at their
that?
kennels.
This is a copy of the Magnet Forensics Axiom report that I prepared for Alex Murdaugh's phone to show health database steps and
Steps.
movement.
Okay. You testified yesterday about steps, correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall, in terms of our ability to rely on any of those steps, what you testified to?
It is noticeable.
Yes, sir.
And,
the dick is not
in your
there.
opinion, what is the reliability? What do these steps tell us? Excuse me.
It tells us that the phone recorded the steps. It's not 100% accurate as to that's how many steps were taken. It also will not tell where the start was, the stop was, as far as distances, anything like that. But it's not 100% accurate. It just says the phone recorded steps. It was in movement recording steps.
Okay. And generally, for a phone to record steps, what does that tell you? How does a phone, what kinds of motion can cause a phone to record steps?
Possibly somebody was holding it in their hand, somebody had it in their pocket, but they were moving. They were actually in motion. They were either walking, could be running. It would record the steps, but somebody's got the phone in movement versus putting it in your cup holder of your car and driving around. It's not going to record steps that way.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Let's look at record 25.
Yes, please. I want to hear all of them. All of them.
What does that say?
Record 25 shows that the phone recorded 74 steps. Start time of June 7th, 2021 at 8:05:35 p.m. Ending time of 8:09:52 p.m.
All right. Record 26. What does that say?
Record 26 shows the phone recorded 283 steps with a start time of June 7th, 2021, 9:02:18 p.m.
There's that
Ending
gap.
time 9:06:47 p.m.
Okay. So,
There's that gap.
and I'll hand this report back to you, but we see an hour gap, approximately an hour gap between those steps that ended at 8:09 and when the steps start to occur again at 9:02, correct?
Correct.
And I'll hand you a report so you can flip through it because some of the things got out of order. Just to verify.
There it is.
Do you see any steps that occur on that phone between those two times, between 8:09 and 9:02?
This is Alex's phone, and there is a gap in activity from 8:09 p.m. to 9:02 p.m. So either he was asleep, the phone was off.
No, sir, I do not.
And whose phone are we talking about again?
This phone was Alex Murdaugh's phone.
So in your opinion, was this phone being moved around with or walked around with during that gap in time, according to the record or the analysis you're doing?
No, sir, not in my opinion, based off my analysis.
Why? Wait, why?
All right, and I
He's on the
previously entered
Snapchat
Stacy's
video at
289, which
8:44
was the
p.m.
timeline for Alex's phone, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
And let's talk about this timeline a little bit. So what kind of information is found in this timeline on Alex's phone?
So we know at 8:44 he is
On this
Up at the
phone,
kennels.
it captured things like incoming text messages to show a log entry for it. It shows there's a log entry for images, steps. It's a little bit different the way Celebrate does steps versus Axiom, so it's a little bit different look to it. It also has text messages on here as they came in, and a few more log entries to show that
he was at the house
text
during this
messages
time.
and that
which is confirmed by
phone
other
calls were
evidence.
being made and recorded in the log.
Do you see any orientation changes like we talked about on Maggie's
could have
phone
turned it
in that
off.
report? Would it include it if there were?
Usually you don't see it in a timeline report like this. You would find it in the device events report. We would pull it separate.
Oh, have you, in your analysis, you've looked at the
We have
device
not
events
seen the
report,
Snapchat
correct?
video yet.
Yes, sir, I have.
All right. And during that same time frame, do you see any orientation movement or anything to suggest
Alec is
those being
heard
handled? Or
on
does that data
Snapchat at the
exist?
kennels at 8:44.
Which time frame
Paul's
exactly?
phone.
The
Logs.
device events,
A little bit sooner than
you
8:49.
find data
Maggie's phone
from
locks at
the
8:49.
night of the murder on Alex's phone.
Earlier in the evening, I did, but there was a gap in time where I did not see it.
Okay. All right. You just testified about the steps, and we can get the report back to you if you need to be refreshed. What time did Alex's phone start moving after that gap between 8:05 and 9:02?
It started moving at 9:02 after, there was that gap before, but it started at 9:02 recording steps again.
And
So
those
he
texts were not
leaves
read
the
at that
house
time,
at 9:06.
Correct.
And
He doesn't.
you
That's
looked at a couple
interesting.
earlier texts in that thread, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
How many of you
And
check your
those
text when you
texts
wake
have
up?
been read within
from
20
a nap?
minutes, correct?
Yes, sir, approximately.
And in your analysis and investigation, did you review other texts that might or might not be in that report?
If
that's
you
in
were waking
evidence
up looking for your family and asking where they were,
to
would you
review
be reading
Alex's
texts?
habit of when he read text?
Yes, sir, I reviewed other texts.
All right, from the day of the murder?
From that day and previous days and days after.
And just in your general review.
They're going to go to the change of habit.
And I'm sure there's outliers, but what is Alex's general habit when he reads text?
Usually it could vary from anywhere from reading it within 5 minutes to 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, just depending. But it was generally within an hour's time, it appeared that the texts were read.
And like I said, there's probably outliers, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. But this particular thread we've been talking about with the group family thread,
The thread
what
about
was
his
the topic
father
they were talking about?
that he was so
It was
worried
about his father being in the hospital.
That's
Those
interesting
texts weren't
argument.
read till the next day, correct?
Correct.
He's so worried about his dad. His dad's in hospice. He goes to visit his mom because he's so worried about his dad, but he's not checking the text in the family thread talking about his dad's condition. That's interesting.
I am going to show you what's been marked for ID purposes.
Interesting
Item
argument.
274. Give me a second to find it.
So his dad is in the hospital, had gone into the hospital that day. And he says he takes a nap, but then when he wakes up, he's not checking his text. Then he talks to his wife, but she doesn't respond. And he thinks that's weird, but he doesn't think that's weird enough to really check it. That's good argument for the prosecution.
It was August 13th, 2021.
Okay. And to the best of your recollection, where had the phone been previous to you?
Previous to us, it was located in Charleston County in their evidence area.
And that was Paul McManigal, correct?
Yes, sir. It has his sticker on there. That
This is
it
going to be Paul's
was in
phone. Do we
his
have no
possession.
other data from Alex's
To
phone?
your knowledge, did he,
What about the
was he able to
Cellbrite?
access Paul's phone?
What about the Celebrate that
Not
was
that I'm
downloaded
aware
the night of
of.
the murders?
I believe
I have
he
questions. What happened to
might
that
have
Celebrate?
gotten a little just surface information from it, but to my knowledge, he was not able to access it due to the passcode.
Interesting
The
if
phone was
that's all they had.
Yes,
about
sir.
Alec.
And when you got it in August of 21, excuse me, was the phone still locked?
What are
Yes,
the
sir, it
chances
was.
And
Alec
in
had a
August of
burner phone,
2021,
I think
did you have
probably
any
pretty
tools
high.
available at SLED that would help you unlock that phone?
given some of the
At
things he's
that
been
time,
charged
no,
with?
sir, it would not support that model and that iOS that was running on the system.
And these companies that develop software to access
I think
these
it's highly
phones,
probable.
that software is continuously updated, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that software isn't free, correct?
Correct.
And it's sort of like a game, isn't it? Apple,
This-
these companies discover an
this is
exploit on
all
these phones
leading,
that
by
allow
the
them
way.
to access it, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then
Each-
Apple
no one's
produces a software update that
I don't even think they want to object
fixes that
because they
exploit,
want
correct?
this to move
Correct.
through too.
So it's kind of a continuous cycle. being able to access these phones and not, correct?
Yes, sir,
But
correct.
in August of 2021, you did not have the ability to access Paul's phone, correct?
No, sir, I did not.
All right. Let's fast forward to March of 2022. Did it come to your attention that a fellow law enforcement agency had recently acquired a tool that could potentially access Paul's phone?
Yes, sir. I spoke with John Van Houten of the United States Secret Service, and they believe they had the capabilities with the tools they had to obtain the passcode to this phone.
All right. And did you take that phone?
Maybe it's just me, but
Mr.
what I
Van
hear is
Yes,
that
sir, I did.
All right. And
they got a new toy and they were ready to crack some
approximately when was
phones.
that again?
It was in March of 2020.
They're like, phones, who's got phones?
All right. And to your knowledge,
We got our new
was Mr.
cracker.
Van Houten successful in accessing Paul's phone?
Yes, sir.
And when you got that full file system extraction,
They were ready to brute force that
Mr. Van Houten,
phone. They were
what
like,
did
who's
you
got
do?
phones?
I processed it.
We
with
wanna use it.
Celebrite physical
Let us try our new
analyzer
toy.
and also verify the information with Axiom by magnet forensics.
I think they also want to solve murders. I'm not saying that they
Your
don't,
Honor,
but
at
I
this
can also
time,
see the,
the state would
we
move
have a new, we have a new,
274 into evidence.
we have the new thing. We have the new thing. Let us try it.
I'm going to show you what's
But I
pre-marked
also
as Exhibit
had a 292,
states
podium in
292.
most courts I was
You
in.
probably need to open a box. You recognize it.
It's just all leading. Nobody cares. They're just like, it's the cell phone evidence. Let him be. I don't know why they're not. I don't know why the defense isn't objecting to all of the leading, but they're sure not.
I'm going to hand you what's Exhibit 293. Take a look at it. Let us know if you recognize it.
Yes, sir, I do.
Ooh, that's good coffee.
And what is that?
It appears to be my Celebrite report that I prepared for call logs from Paul Murdaugh's phone with a date filter set for June 5th, 2021 to June 7th, 2021.
All right.
I'm going to direct you to phone calls that occurred on the night of June 7th. Okay, let's look above that. So lines 3 and 4. And what is that? What do those lines indicate?
Those lines show that the phone had an outgoing call that was placed June 7th, 2021 at 8:20 p.m. and it was answered.
Okay. And who's the contact name on that outgoing call?
Rogan Gibson.
Whose dog was staying there?
And this is Paul's phone, correct?
Yes, sir, this is Paul's phone.
So 8:40:20, he calls
Data
Rogan
that was
Gibson.
stored on Paul's phone that you recovered in your investigation, correct?
He's
Yes,
doing
sir,
a much
correct.
better job of making
And that's
this
an outgoing call to Rogan Gibson.
meaningful
Yes,
to the
sir.
jury.
And how long did that call last?
It recorded that call as 4 minutes and 14 seconds.
Okay. And we see actually between line 3 and 4, it's like.
I actually feel like
difference in
the
that time.
prosecutor's
I believe
explaining a
line
bit
4
more.
Says 4 minutes and 18 seconds. But your testimony, looking at this data, the correct length of the call is what?
It's 4 minutes and 14 seconds.
Let's look above that to lines 1 and 2. What do we see there?
Lines 1 and 2 show an outgoing call on June 7th, 2021 at 8:34 p.m.
Okay. And what is that? Who is that call to?
That call shows to Rogan Gibson.
All right. And we see a source. What is that source for this call?
It is a FaceTime call,
And how long did that call last?
Because they're probably talking
approximately
about the
11
dog.
seconds.
And that was answered, correct?
Yes, sir, it shows as answered.
All right. And so if that call started at 8:44:34 and it lasted 11 seconds, when did that call end?
It would have ended at 8:44:45.
So he talks to
All
Rogan,
right.
and then he
I see this
FaceTimes
is record
Rogan.
number 1, correct?
Yes, sir.
All
And
right.
again, they're
So
going,
this
they're
is
talking
most
about the
recent
dog.
Call on.
Yes, Rogan is on the
Paul's
witness
phone,
list.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
Were there ever any other outgoing calls made?
It's a
from
real
Paul's phone?
fast FaceTime.
No, sir, not that I found.
Were there ever any other calls that were answered? Incoming calls that were answered?
I'm
on
guessing the
Paul's phone?
FaceTime was like,
No, sir.
I can't see anything on that FaceTime. Can you send me a video? Because the Snapchat video, it's my understanding that the Snapchat video comes right around that same time. So I wonder if with the 11-second FaceTime call, it was, dude, I can't see anything on the FaceTime. Just send me a video. Because at
I'm going to show
8:44
you what's been marked.
is when we have a recording.
Exhibit 294.
And that FaceTime call was also right at 8:44. So you hear Alex's voice at the kennels on recording around 8:44 as well. And then at 8:49:31, Paul's phone locks. At 8:49:31,
Yes,
that's
sir.
Maggie's phone. When does
And what
Paul's
is that?
phone lock?
This is a Cellbrite report that I pulled for text messages from Paul Murdaugh's phone.
Rogan is one of Paul's best friends. That night, Rogan and Paul are talking about the dog. There's text about the dog, and then he's trying to get back through to Paul. He doesn't. Eventually, he texts Maggie and says, "Tell Paul to call me." It's just it's heartbreaking for me. His bestie is trying to talk to him about his dog. Their life's normal. And in the middle of that conversation about the dog,
At this time, state who's entered exhibit 294.
Maggie and Paul are both murdered and don't answer. And Rogan is trying to get back to them to figure out what's going on because it's
And this
unusual.
state would ask that this be under seal. It will display phone call or phone numbers.
It's unusual that they
To
stopped
protect
answering in the
privacy,
middle.
The state would ask that it be placed under seal.
God, it's just I feel really, really bad for Rogan
This is
Gibson.
under
I can't
seal. I'm
imagine.
gonna publish it. Let's look at line 8 on this report.
Jacqueline, we've heard no information that any of the animals were hurt.
That's line 3. Line 3.
At some
What
point,
is this?
Alec is calling Rogan to come to the house.
It's a text message that was received on his phone June 7th,
Talk
2021
about
at 8:48:39 p.m. Shows us an incoming text message.
All right. And who's it from? The
If-
contact name.
It's from Megan Kimbrell.
And what does the text message say?
It says, "Don't like watching sad movies."
They were talking about the movies.
And this was
That
an
was in
incoming
defense
message from
opening.
Paul's phone, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
Does it indicate that this message was read?
Yes, sir. It shows it's read June 7th, 2021 at 8:48:59 p.m.
So seconds after it's received, 22nd or tenths of a second after it's received. 20 tenths of a second after it's
Actually,
received.
let's look at line 4, which was just below line 3, excuse me. What does this line, this entry indicate?
It indicates it's another text message that was received from the same sender, Megan Kimbrell.
Okay. And what does the text message say?
It says, "No, I need something happy."
All right, and this,
Fair.
What's the time on this text?
It shows the text is being received June 7th, 2021 at 8:48:29 p.m.
And what time, what's this text message read?
Yes,
Oh, so that's out
yes,
of
sir.
order.
It shows it's being read June 7th, 2021 at 8:48:59 p.m.
All right, and so lines 3 and 4, we put them both there. They were read
So they
at
were-
the same time, correct?
Yes, sir.
What time was that again?
It was 8:48:59 p.m.
On the night of June 7th, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
So these are moments before he's murdered.
All right, let's take a look at line 2. What does this record indicate, sir?
This indicates that a text message was received to this phone on June 7th, 2021 at 8:49:35 p.m.
Okay, so this is approximately how many seconds after those
So
texts
this is
from
gonna
Megan
show
Kimbrell
you-
were read?
He read those texts and then he doesn't read
It
these,
Back for the-
which is just
Yes, sir, if you could, please.
we're just in that timeline of he's talking to a girl about a movie. He's talking to his best friend about a dog. And that's it.
What time were the texts from Megan Kimbrell read?
At 8:48:59 p.m.
So whoever did
And
it, it's absolutely
That
heartbreaking.
text from Rogan arrived at what time?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about Alec
It
calling
arrived at
Rogan to come to the scene
8:49:35 p.m.
before Paul and Maggie are removed from the
Put
scene.
you on the spot again. Can you give us a rough array? How many seconds between those two texts arriving on Paul's phone?
I would have to write that down if I
Oh,
tried to.
sir, let the jury math. It's fucking
Yes, sir.
fast.
Approximately 36 seconds.
What is this text from Rogan ever read on Paul's phone?
No, sir. It shows the status is unread.
Ever.
Ever.
So
It
when you got
just-
this phone download from Van Outen,
After
that
seeing
indicated
what
that
Alex
this
saw,
text from Rogan
whichever
was
way
never
you
read,
think,
correct?
Correct.
8:49.
whether you think he did it, whether you think he didn't do it, whether you think he hired somebody to do it, either way,
36 seconds earlier.
him calling his son's
two texts from
22-year-old
Megan
friend to
Google
come to
word
that
read,
scene
Correct?
Correct.
does not sit properly with me.
You see one final text above
He
that
saw
in
what that
line
scene
one.
was.
What does line one indicate, sir?
Line 1 shows that it was an incoming text message from Rogan Gibson on 6/7/2021 at 9:58:35 p.m.
That's
What does
probably
that
the
text
yo
say?
text.
YO.
Was that text ever read?
No, sir. The status is unread.
And I'm going to dig back into your memory from yesterday, from Maggie's phone. Do you recall a text on
Yeah,
Maggie's
it's
phone?
odd to me.
That was read. at
Press folks are not very
8:49:27.
parental. You would
Yes,
think
sir.
you would be protective of your kid's friend
I
and
believe
not
that
want
was a
anyone to
text
see
from Lynn
that.
G in the group text there, correct?
Correct.
Then again, you think
Why
you
don't you
wouldn't
write that number down?
try to set up one of your kids' friends in the death of Mallory Beach. So,
8:49:27.
you know, I try to put the other cases out of my mind because the jury is not going to have them, but it is difficult. And again, for me, it's difficult. There are things in this case that are difficult. It doesn't mean they're going to
That
prove
was a
this
text
case,
from Lynn G to the group thread.
but it makes it harder. to
About
remember.
Randolph's health. That was read at 8:49:27, correct?
Correct.
All right, and then we have here, line 2, a text from Rogan that was at 8:49:35, correct?
Correct.
How much time separates those two texts?
Approximately 8 seconds.
And that text from Rogan was never read, correct?
Correct. Of pages.
This is where
So,
Alex
this is just
words
a
will be
couple
used
hours.
against him.
Yes, sir.
It was a very human moment when, in the second interview, investigators asked Alec where Paul's phone was normally kept, and he said he keeps it in his hand. And that's what this investigator is confirming. The information on Paul's phone was prolific because he was a very active cell phone user. This doesn't surprise me given his age at all, that he's actively using his phone. So he said to get days and days of this data for Paul's phone would be thousands and thousands of pages for someone who's using their phone more.
Numbers, contained on this,
And they will say, look, even the defendant told you he was a
Removed,
prolific phone
concealed.
user,
privacy reasons.
and he was a prolific phone user, and the phone goes silent, and the phone going silent
All right, and I'm just going to
speaks
pull
volumes.
some examples here.
So
And I'm looking at lines 325 through 329. What's the date range that you see there?
Beginning with 325, it's June 7th, 2021, 6:44:47 p.m. Going to line 329 is going to be June 7th, 2021 at 6:46
So they're going to talk about the
p.m.
activity leading
So
up.
that's approximately 2 minutes of log entries, correct?
Yes, sir, a little bit less than 2 minutes.
Lines 325 and 326
It's just,
and 327, what kind of entries are those?
there's not a lot of quippiness for me this
325,
morning. I find all of this very
327 are
chilling.
location
You know,
data
we are
entries
walking in
into the
somebody's
cached SQLite
Last
database.
hours through their cell phone data. It's just,
And we see some numbers at the top there. I see a 32.
It's very interesting
83,
evidence.
Some other numbers and a minus 81.05.
very
Some other
important
numbers.
evidence,
What
but
are
it's also
those
pretty
numbers
chilling evidence.
indicate?
They are latitude and longitude numbers.
So we've got GPS locations.
Now, and we see 3 entries within almost seconds, correct?
Yes, sir.
So what does that tell you, generally speaking, about Paul's phone and his settings on whether his phone will record location data frequently or not?
It's recording it much more frequently, and every few seconds it's grabbing this information to this database.
Kayla, I don't think
So
we're
it's
at the,
Paul's phone is
I don't think
walking
we're
on
there
his
yet, but
Maggie's
Paul's phone
in
going
comparison.
silent gives us a very accurate
regards to
timeline
location.
of when he
It
was
appears that
murdered.
it's collecting more data as far as location information than Maggie's phone
Who
did.
pulled the trigger,
And then I'm
We're
gonna direct
needing
your attention to
proximity
line
data.
328 there.
but it gives us a
And what is
closer
that?
timeline than we're going to get from the
This
medical
is an
examiner.
entry from an application
That's-
usage
That's why they're doing this
that
first.
shows it was in there, and I believe this application's related to Snapchat.
And what does it actually say there?
It
Snapchat.
actually says com.toyopa
So this is location data grabbed by Snapchat.
.picaboo.
Dot Pickaboo?
Yes.
Wait, is it
And you
peekaboo or
researched-
peekaboo?
And you researched what that means?
Yes, sir, I did.
And you've discovered what?
That it's related to Snapchat.
Snapchat usage?
Yes, sir.
Take a few moments to look through that timeline and just in an overall picture, what is that phone being generally used for? What is being done on that phone in a general impression?
What is being done on that
It
phone?
appears
Everything.
that on this phone, based off of this timeline, that there are calls being made, text messaging being done, Snapchat's being utilized, social media type things with Snapchat, and the text messaging and calls.
And when you look at that usage, would you say it's sporadic or almost continuous?
It's a lot of continuous usage. Like I said, I pulled it from 6 p.m. and it ends at 10:34. So in the matter of about 4.5 hours, it's over 900 entries on here.
They're supposed to be out driving around and checking the property and shooting, though.
I'm going to direct you to time.
So
about
when did they do
8:44,
that?
And you can take a moment to find it. 8:44 p.m.
No, I want to know what the phone usage
I wanna
is.
see if
Did
you
they
can
go drive
find- I
around?
believe there's an entry for the camera.
Yes, sir, I see it.
And what's the exact time on that? Did you say?
Cheryl,
It
it should
says
show up.
8:44:49 p.m.
The
on
chat might be
June
able to help.
7th, 2021.
Actually, so what does that camera, we'll show this in a moment. What does that entry indicate to you?
That the camera was being utilized, it was an application usage, so the camera was being utilized, or
Okay.
beginning to be utilized at that
The
point.
camera was turned on?
Yes.
Let him finish his sentence,
And I want you to
counsel.
look at the next page, or maybe the page after, and see if you can find a corresponding log entry that would show that the camera was turned off.
Yes, the camera shows it was turned off at 8:47 p.m. on June 7th, 2021.
I believe what you're referencing. can
I
you
don't
see
know
that?
where Harpootlian is. I'm very
Yes, sir.
curious to see what
That
social
is,
media has to say about
line
it
820.
later.
Do you see that?
Yes, sir, I did.
And we see a 8:44:49, and that's a start time, correct?
Yes, sir.
And we see the camera turn on, correct?
It shows the camera with the application usage log shows camera. Yes, sir.
Okay. And then below that, at line 822, we see some location data. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And I know you didn't plot every point on this report. Did you plot that particular point?
That's going to be the kennels, right?
Yes, sir.
And where did that, where was that location?
It was located near a red roofed building on the property on Moselle Road.
Okay.
So even though you might be able
And why
to
don't you write
see
that
the
time
property in
down
the
again?
Snapchat, to tie together
I'm
the
sorry.
foundation that the snap is
Line
happening
820.
contemporaneously, they need that longitude, latitude.
8:44:49. Okay. Let's look
Wow.
at line
I think
828.
Paul's
What
phone
do
was
you see
likely
there,
in his
sir?
hand when he
That
was
shows
killed.
the end time for the camera at 8:47 p.m.
So how did it
Write
get
that time
onto
down.
the back of his body? I don't think his phone was in his pocket.
It went for less than a minute.
Okay.
About 50 seconds roughly.
Okay.
The jury can also do basic math. It's very strange to me that lead counsel has been out of the courtroom so much this
I'm gonna hand
morning.
this report back to you. And I'm just going to have you again look through it.
So again, this is foundational.
See if you
They've
can
got to
form
use
an
multiple
opinion.
witnesses to build this. because they can't just bring in the Snapchat
Starting
person.
at-
They have to prove
remember
it
the
came from
text
his phone.
Series we just went through with Megan Kimbrell
And that's what they're doing.
and the text from Rogan at 8:49:35, 8:49.
This is a really good question, Kimbo. If Paul's phone was in his hand, why wasn't it covered in blood? And again, I think because of the
Alright,
backward
I have it.
trajectory.
All right.
But if it
So
had
starting with,
fallen, it wouldn't have been in
the
blood yet if it
outgoing
was picked up.
text to Megan, or excuse me, with the
I don't see
red
when it would have
text
gotten into his pocket
from Megan,
because
which
he's
were read at
active
8,
on it.
I believe, 48:59.
I don't think it could have been in his pocket
Why
because
don't you go ahead and review the rest of that report? And I want you to tell this jury whether you see anything in that report that would indicate to you that that phone was being actively used by a human being.
No, sir, I do not.
Okay.
if Alex Murdaugh were your client, do you recommend him take the stand? No, sure don't. Sure
I'm going
don't.
to show you.
Sure don't. He's given
record
3 interviews to police. He has said enough.
43 and
He doesn't need to be
44.
heard
Do you
from
see
it all.
those, sir?
Yes, sir, I can.
All right. And what do those
Map on bring
two
the jury's epic.
records indicate? Let's try to keep it chronological. So start with 43.
43 shows that the phone recorded 105 steps. Starting time was June 7th, 2021 at 6:54:21 p.m.
We've done some of
Ending
this.
time is 7:03:49 p.m.
All right. And did any other steps recorded on Paul's phone after 8:42:11?
Oh, those are going to be the last steps. The last steps recorded about 2 minutes before the Snapchat's recorded. Oh, Poots wandered back in. He's got a lot to say. I don't know if they're trying to find another witness, if they're working. I don't know what
No,
they're
sir, I
doing.
did not see any that were out of
But they're
order.
doing something.
So after 8:42:11 p.m., did Paul's phone move it to any significant degree, in your opinion? Or was it walked anywhere to any significant degree, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I did not see any steps recorded on the phone. So it's not in motion or somebody moving it or holding it and moving.
Now, you testified that the steps aren't necessarily 100% accurate, correct?
Correct.
So is it possible the phone moved a short distance during that time, correct?
Correct.
And a few steps may or may not have been recorded if the phone had been moved after 8:42:11, correct?
Correct. It's possible.
But in your opinion, was that phone walked anywhere, any significant amount of distance?
No, sir, I did not see any recordings of that.
So there
It's
might
tough
have
to
been
quantify significance,
some
isn't it?
steps.
Yes, sir, it is.
And I'm not going to ask you to give us a precise number, because do you know a precise number?
No, sir, I do not.
But in your opinion,
It's
can
all
that
leading.
phone move a short distance and not record steps?
Yes, sir, since it's not 100% accurate.
It's all leading, and they're
may
not
have 1 or 2
objecting at
steps
all.
that don't get recorded. Usually if it's a large amount of steps, if you're 15, 20, 30 steps, it's going to record that.
Oh, I think it's weird that Dick has been walking in and out of the
We're
courtroom
getting-
in the middle of trial.
Here to the-
I definitely think it's strange.
One quick thing I want to go back and cover. Let's talk about Maggie's phone real quick.
Wait, why?
And you previously testified that you saw that orientation change on Maggie's phone between 9:06, it starts at 9:06,
Maybe we're going to
12.
remind
PM,
the jury of
correct?
Maggie's orientation
Yes, sir.
change and then go
And
to
it ends
Paul's.
at 9:06:20 PM, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And that indicated, you previously testified that someone had that phone in their hands during that time, correct?
Yes, sir.
However, you also testified that there is one other possibility that could explain how a orientation change could record on a phone, correct?
Yes, sir. If it fell like down steps or something like that, it was on.
And you also, I believe, testified that if a phone tumbles end over end in some way, that could potentially record
I'm interested to see where this goes.
orientation change, correct?
Yes, sir. If the phone's on,
Don't lead the way.
So I just paused it real quick just to answer this question about from Super Planner Girl, the blue banner. So that ticker at the bottom, these are like the key terms, not key terms, but things that come up a lot in trial. There's a number of them that I'm counting. So this is going to be a running ticker for the entire trial, and so they will be cumulative. So feel free as we go along to make your guesses as to how many total we will have, by the end of trial. Sometimes it's fun to guess like that. So I'm just keeping track of those. So that's me. I added that ticker down there at the bottom. So yeah.
There's the leading
If a
objection.
phone falls and tumbles end over end, could it potentially record an orientation?
It was very leading.
If the phone is on and unlocked, it can record the orientation change.
If the phone
On.
is thrown and tumbles end over end, could it record an orientation change?
It would be hard to do if it's off. If the screen display is off and it's not unlocked, it would be hard to record
The
that.
phone has to be on and unlocked.
In theory, it is possible.
In theory, I'm sure it's possible, yes, sir.
It has to be
And
generally
in your
on and
opinion, is
unlocked.
that likely?
Usually when phones, if you're holding a phone, you take your phone, unless you move it, if you take your phone and it's sideways and you lay it down on the table, it's not going to record an orientation change. If it's in portrait mode and you set it straight down and don't turn it over the end, it's not going to record the change. But it is possible.
In your opinion, if someone throws a phone with no other manipulation,
Why are we asking about throws of
could it
phones?
be thrown a short distance without recording an orientation change?
Yes.
Do we think the phone was what?
All right. Now, one thing we haven't talked about with Maggie and Alex's phone is one other review you've done with these phones is those phones have a lot of photographs and videos on them.
Is
correct?
there no
Yes, sir, correct.
And
orientation
you've
change?
reviewed, I don't know if you've reviewed them all, but
On
have you
Paul's
reviewed a
phone?
substantial portion of
I have
them?
questions.
Yes, sir.
All right. And did you find anything on Maggie or Alex's phone?
Oh, like throwing it out the window.
that
Yes.
Was relevant to
Chat
the
wise.
investigation on,
I'm still thinking
at
of
least
Paul.
on June 7th of 2021?
Yes, sir, I did.
On Maggie or Alex's phone?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, not on Maggie or Alex. It's
Okay.
fine.
At least in relation to the events of that night, was there anything recorded?
He
on
didn't
Maggie or
tie that up
Alex's
for me.
phone that was relevant that you found?
As far as video,
So what Emily's kind of talking about here, just to kind of summarize this for those of you who haven't watched the trial, or even if you have, basically what they're kind of getting at here, and we'll hear more about this later with other witnesses as well, is the fact that Maggie's phone was not found at the murder scene. Maggie's phone was found down a ways on Moselle Road. And like I said, we'll hear more about that later. But the whole idea is, how did the phone get there, right? And so the orientation change matters because the prosecution's theory is that Alex threw her phone out the window when he was driving. Either I think it's on the way back from visiting his parents, his quote unquote alibi. But either way, either on the way there or on the way back, that he would have been driving down Moselle and threw her phone out the window. And so, like I said, we'll hear more about that later from other witnesses, but the orientation change would be an indication potentially that the phone was chucked out the window. So that's what that's about.
recordings or photograph recordings, no.
Okay. All right. Paul's phone, did you conduct a similar review?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did you find anything that you consider relevant
Oh,
to what occurred?
maybe we are getting the
on the
Snapchat
night
video.
of June 7th at Moselle?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay.
Oh,
And in fact, we've already referenced it, haven't we?
Yes, sir.
When we looked at Paul's timeline, we saw an entry of Paul's camera coming on, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I think you wrote the time down, but if you can't
Oh, I think
find it,
we're gonna
you
see
can
the
do a
Snapchat
report
video.
out. Well, what time did that camera come on?
At
We're getting that direction.
8:44:49.
Okay. And how long was that video again?
It was roughly 50 seconds.
When did that video end?
At 8:45:47.
And you're certain about that?
Yes, sir.
Why are you certain about that?
Because I reviewed the video
The time
for
stamps it.
looking at the length of the video. It compared it to the length of the camera time that was on. Also, too, there was data recorded in the video because it was taken with the phone. that had GPS coordinates along with a description of the phone that took it.
And you're telling this jury today that you're certain that that is when that video was recorded on Paul's phone?
Yes, sir.
Did you review that video? Did you review that
And
video?
as we referenced, when we were looking at that timeline,
he's got a disc in his
there's location
hand.
data associated with that video as well, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
All right. And where did you plot that location?
It plotted to Moselle Road to near a building that had a red roof on it.
I'm going to show you what's been
Yep.
marked as State's Exhibit 297.
There's the video.
You recognize it, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is that?
It is a CD that contains a video. On it, it says Kennel Video, has States 297 on there, along with my initials and the date of 1/30/23.
And have you reviewed the contents of that CD?
Yes, sir, I have.
And what is the contents of that CD?
Yep,
It is a
that's the
video I
foundation to
found on
introduce
Paul
the video.
Murdaugh's phone. The video looks like inside maybe a kennel area with a fence around it and a dog, I believe to be a lab, where he's trying to take a video of the tail of the dog.
Okay. All right. And that's what you see in that video.
Yes, sir.
What do you hear in the video?
You hear three different voices in the video. You can tell because they're so different, you can tell that they're different voices.
All right. Now, are any of those voices known personally to you?
No, sir, they are not.
Other witnesses will
This
tie in
time,
those
State will
voices.
move to enter Exhibit 297 into evidence.
Now that it's being entered, it can be played. It can be
Submitted over
published.
objection.
Submitted over objection. Did you just hear the
This time-
camera go off in court?
State's going to publish that video. It is-
They're going to play the Snapchat video. That's happening right now. We have not seen much about Paul's Snapchat video. They are queuing it up. We have heard about it. This is the evidence.
Quick, Kenny. Quick. Kenny. Hey, you got burners now. Hey, well. It's a kitty. It's a chicken. Come here. Get. Quick.
Yep, they're talking about the dog that got a bird. That's, you can hear
What
them.
time was that video recorded again, Lieutenant Dove?
The camera begins at 8:44:49 p.m.
And ends when?
at 8:45:47 p.m.
Nothing further from State.
They ended with the Snapchat video. Strong play.
Cross-examination.
Rogan Gibson, Gibson.
God, that witness chair is awkward.
Mr. Gibson, how you doing today?
Good.
Okay.
Good. Mr. Gibson, I want you to introduce yourself to the jury a little bit. Tell us, where you grew up, where you went to high school, just a little bit about yourself before we get to your testimony.
Tell us about your mom
I
and
went
them.
to Wade Hampton High School. I'm from Hampton.
All right. And you working now?
Don't lean in.
I am.
Please
All right.
don't.
What field do you work in?
The agriculture field.
All right. Why don't you see if you can pull that mic up just a little bit and scoot up just a hair so you're speaking into
That witness
projector.
stool looks so awful.
You said you're working in agriculture, is that right?
That's correct.
All right. And currently still working in agriculture?
That's correct.
Back in June of 2021, what were you doing? Working in agriculture?
That's correct. Farming.
What kind of job did you have?
I was farming, operating equipment.
Operating equipment. Okay. And let me ask you, did you get to know Paul Murdaugh?
I did.
All right. And tell me, how old were you when you got to know Paul Murdaugh?
I've known him all my life, real good, probably when I was 11, 12 years old.
And how did y'all get to meet one another? How did you become closer?
I lived next to him
Okay. And when did that happen?
when I was 11, 12 years old.
11 to 12? Y'all went to school together?
Paul was a little bit younger than me, and I didn't go to school with him.
Okay. When y'all were growing up, what kind of things y'all like to do together?
We enjoyed the outdoors, hunting, fishing, hanging around the farm.
Were you close friends with Paul until the day he was murdered?
I was.
Tell the jury just a little bit about Paul. Give me just a little sense of who he was as a person.
He loved outdoors, hunting, fishing, hanging around.
And over the years, did you spend a lot of time out there?
I did.
What were some of the things that you would do with Paul out there?
We would hunt, fish, hang around.
Ride around the property?
Yeah, work the food plots, work equipment.
Tell me how that works. What would y'all do? Y'all walking around? Y'all riding around? How does that go?
Most of the time we drove four-wheeler.
Do you have a dog at that time?
I did.
They hurt.
And what kind of dog?
Chocolate lab.
Chocolate lab?
They hurt.
Still have the chocolate lab?
I do.
What's the dog's name?
Cash.
Cash. How old was Cash about that time?
Cash like Johnny Cash?
I'm guessing he was a puppy, 6 months old maybe.
Were you able to keep Cash with you when you were staying at your girlfriend's in Beaufort?
I was not able to
And why was that?
because she wasn't allowed. She was renting a house. We couldn't keep one there.
What arrangements did you make for Cash when you were staying in Beaufort and you couldn't keep him at your girlfriend's house?
I would leave him at the kennels at Moselle.
And tell me how that came to be. How did you work that out?
I asked Mr. Alex if I could leave him there. And I would be gone at a week at a time. Just leave him there for a week, pick him back up when I come back home on the weekend.
June 7th, 2021.
This is gonna get a
did
lot
you have
harder
any
for the
communications with
witnesses.
Paul?
I did.
What's the first one you remember?
Sometime around lunchtime.
All right. What did y'all communicate? Did y'all talk on the phone? Did y'all text or what?
Yeah, I think he called me and told me about the sunflowers had been sprayed in the Dove field and they were dead.
They were real upset about the
What did he
sunflowers.
say about that?
Said that he was getting ready to replant them.
They've been sprayed with some Roundup or something?
That's correct.
Did y'all talk about anything else that you remember?
Not that I remember.
So the sunflowers had died in the Dove field. They were going to replant the sunflowers. It's my understanding
Well,
that
I'm
the
thinking
sunflowers
about it.
bring the birds.
I asked you
so
about
they can
Paul's
hunt.
use of a cell phone. Do you know where he kept his cell phone when it wasn't in his hand?
Most of the time in his pockets.
Was he typically one to respond?
Hey guys, I just wanted to say real quick, hi to anyone that is joining us. Janie, glad to have you here. I just wanted to say, in case anyone's listening and not watching, shout out to McSpanky Pants, in case you're still driving and listening, that, you know, these YouTube notifications, as y'all are probably well aware, are hit or miss. So I have put the link to the Discord in the chat, because that's a surefire way to get notifications, because I put those out through the Discord, the Law Squirrel Discord. So if you are interested, that link is in the chat. On the stand right now, we have Rogan Gibson, who was Paul's best friend. And yeah, we'll continue on with his emotional testimony.
Respond pretty quick to you? You
Normally-
were talking about something?
Normally, yeah, we were talking about something. He would respond pretty quick.
We're going to get back into the Snapchat video
That
with this
evening,
witness.
well,
I believe this witness will identify all the
Did you talk to
voices.
Paul again after that initial conversation?
I did.
All right. And when was that, roughly?
Around 8:40.
Okay. And what was that conversation about?
He called and asked if something was wrong with the dog's tail.
Okay. And was that the first you were hearing about that?
That's correct.
Tell me about your conversation.
I told him that, I wasn't real sure. I just dropped him off there Sunday. And told him let's try to see if he can get me a picture or FaceTime me and let me see what was going on with the dog's tail.
And that's the FaceTime we
Where
saw.
was Paul when he called you?
He was at the dog kennels.
And how do you know that?
I could hear the dogs barking in the original call.
Is he describing to you what he's seeing on Cash's tail?
That's correct.
And Cash was at the kennels?
He was.
Did you hear any other voices when you were on the phone with Paul about 8:40?
I did.
And what voices did you hear?
I heard Miss Maggie.
And who else did you hear?
And I thought it was Mr. Alex that I heard.
You thought it was Mr. Allen?
That's the Snapchat video.
You
they're
talked to
talking
Paul,
about.
and what did y'all talk about? What was he going to do?
He was going to try to FaceTime me. He
Okay.
said, you know how the service is out here. He said, if I can't get the FaceTime to go through, I'll send you a video.
And why was he going to FaceTime you? What's the difference between FaceTime and a regular call?
So I could see what was wrong with the dog.
And y'all talked about how the service is
It
out here?
absolutely hurt him to
correct.
say he
What do you mean
Alex.
by that?
Most of the time you got enough service to make a call.
'Cause he
I mean,
knows.
sometimes the calls will break up, but a FaceTime, couldn't really get a whole lot of service to make the FaceTime call. It's kind of lagging.
Y'all have had problems with that before?
That's correct.
Did y'all discuss what to do if the FaceTime didn't work?
He already said that.
We did.
And what was the discussion?
He was gonna send me a video of it, of the dog.
He was gonna video it and then do what with it? Text it to you?
That's correct.
Oh yeah, his testimony will make
Is
me
that the
cry
last
at some
time you ever
point.
talked to your friend?
That was.
Did y'all try to FaceTime?
We did.
Did it work?
It came through, but it was kind of lagging. I couldn't tell what was going on.
And then never heard from him again?
That's correct.
Did you ever get that video?
I did not.
He's doing an incredible job as a witness. But you can hear.
After you never got the video, did you try to reach back out to Paul to see if you could get him to respond?
I did. I called him a few times and texted him.
Did he ever respond?
He didn't.
You can hear.
Did you
it
reach
in
out to
his
anyone
voice.
else trying to get Paul to respond?
I texted Miss Maggie.
Did she respond?
She did.
About what time do you think you went to bed that night?
I'm not exactly sure. It was sometime right after I probably tried to contact him.
And you never heard from Miss Maggie either?
I did.
Did you ever talk to her at all that day?
I did.
Yeah, that's incredibly hard testimony to
About
give.
what time do you think you went to bed?
I'm gonna say somewhere around 10 o'clock.
And you can hear him fighting
You were pretty sound sleep?
back the emotion.
That's correct.
Been working on the farm all day?
That's correct.
I'm so glad he didn't pick up that call and end up at that
Did
crime
some calls
scene.
come in that you didn't realize because you were asleep?
Yes, I woke up with some missed calls.
What time did you wake up the next morning?
Sometime around 5:30.
When did you find out that your friend Paul and his mother Maggie had been murdered?
That same time, 5:30.
How'd you find out?
I called one of my friends that had left me, or I had a missed call from, and he told me what had happened.
And tell me his first name, please.
Nolan.
What'd you do after that?
We got a little boy up and got him to school without talking about it a whole lot, and then we headed back home.
And by home, you mean Colleton County?
Colleton County, that's correct.
And where'd you go from there?
I went to my house first, then I ended up going to Moselle.
About what time you think you got there?
Sometime maybe 8:30, 9 o'clock.
What'd you see when you got there? Where'd you go on the property?
I went to the dog kennels.
And who'd you see there? Did you talk to anyone there?
I did, and I seen John Marvin, but I didn't speak to him.
Did you talk to anybody at the scene when you first went there?
The only person I seen was John Marvin.
What'd you do after that?
My cousin let the dog out the kennel.
That being cash?
That's correct.
Did you take cash with you?
I did.
And where'd y'all go from there?
To the convenience store
So he went and took his
down the road
dog.
from the house.
And who'd you meet there?
Wait, who are your
Met a
cousins?
game warden.
And what'd you do after that? Did you have a conversation?
I did. I had a conversation with him, and he said that law enforcement was going to be wanting to speak with me. And I told him, I said, well, if you got a contact, let's get him up here and let's talk.
So the game
So
warden.
Did you wait for law enforcement to arrive?
I did.
Do you remember who you talked to?
I did.
And who'd you talk to?
Jeff Croft and Katie McAllister.
This is Croft who rerouted to talk to
Did they do an
him
interview of
because
you?
he
They
was at the
did.
gas store
Did they ask you
station.
about your
Or the,
communications with Paul? the
that
night
makes
before?
more sense.
They did.
And did they ask you to see your cell phone?
They did.
Did they take screenshots of your cell phone?
That's correct.
I still don't know who his cousin is.
Your communications the night before with Paul and Maggie and others the night before.
Yes, sir.
Were you holding up the phone and they were taking screenshots?
Yes, sir.
And that's when we heard from Agent Croft that he was on the way to Moselle and then rerouted to do an interview with this witness.
I'm going to show you what's been marked for identification
This has got to be so hard for this witness, but you can hear his voice crack
167.
when he's talking about it.
I'll show you 166. Is that another screenshot of it?
It is.
Or are you trying to text right there down those last two bubbles?
I was sending those texts, Paul.
As
Which puts
time went on after
Alec
the
up at the
murders,
kennels
did you go to Moselle where all the family and friends
for
were
4
gathering?
minutes,
I
5
did.
minutes.
Were you there a fair amount?
Probably the whole part of that later that week.
While you were there at the house where the family and friends had gathered, did anyone ever ask you about your last contact with Paul?
There was
And who asked you?
Grandma.
And that be Miss Brandstutter,
That's correct.
Maggie's mother?
That's correct.
And what did you say?
Told her, yeah, that I had talked to Paul about the dog, and told her that I heard Miss Maggie in the background, and I heard a male voice that I thought was Mr. Ellett.
Was he in the room then?
Yes,
Did he stand up and say, "No, I wasn't there"?
he did.
Maggie's mother asked,
Did you ever have any conversation
that was a good
with
pause for Creighton.
Alex Murdaugh about
Maggie's mother
what happened
asked.
that night?
No, sir.
Did he ever ask you about whether or not you heard him on that phone that night?
Maggie's
No, sir.
family has not
Did
been
he
in
ever
court.
tell you what he did that night?
No, sir.
Did you ever ask him
Ever.
what he did that night?
No, sir.
Not a subject you wanted to talk about, was it?
That's correct.
Over time, as the months passed following the murder of Paul and Maggie,
Oh, I don't like where this is going.
did you were ultimately interviewed by law enforcement and other part of the process and that sort of thing, is that correct?
That's correct.
Who else tried to talk
And
to
as
you?
time went on and you were asked about who you heard on the phone that night, that call at 8:40, you said, "Hey, I thought it was Alec, but I can't be sure."
That's correct.
Told law enforcement the night of, 99% sure, correct?
Say that question again, please.
Told law enforcement
he's
the next
walked it
day,
back.
June 8th, that you were 99% sure, is that correct?
That's correct.
As time went on, you said, "I thought it was Alec, but I can't be sure."
That's correct.
Why did you walk it back? Why did you walk
In
it back?
November of 2022, did law enforcement ask you to come in and look at a video?
They did.
Snapchat.
And did you watch that video?
I did.
And what was on that video?
It was the video. Paul was supposed to take a cash. Cash was on the video.
And did you recognize the voices on there?
I did.
Did you recognize the voices of your second family?
I did.
And what voices did you hear?
Paul's, Miss Maggie, Mr. Ellett.
That's a good
And
question.
how sure are you now?
Positive.
100%?
That's correct.
It's a good question, Creighton. It's a good way to question your second family.
1 second for the computer to boot up.
Y'all, we're going to see it. I've been seeing some of the looks. He was backing away from Alec being there until he saw that video. Creighton has asked some powerful questions. This is going to be the end of this questioning. They've got to leave the Snapchat to last. It's going to be emotional. But this is a family he spent a ton of time with. He can identify those voices. And you're starting to see the looks that seem like he is giving them to Alex Murdaugh. Those in the courtroom will be able to tell better than us on stream. But these are good questions from Creighton. And even though it's emotional testimony, it disproves Alex's timeline powerfully. But the tech issues kind of take away the moment. It gives us all a second to take a breath. But this witness is very believable and has no reason to not be. He was where he was. He saw what he saw. He texted what he texted. And he went through something horrible. But Maggie Murdaugh's mom, Paul's grandma, asking him who he heard on that call is very interesting information to me. We've never seen Maggie's family in court. And they are going to play this Snapchat video. That I was worried the prosecution was going to say, has anybody else contacted you? Because I wouldn't be surprised by that either. He backed away from the certainty of it until he saw the video that was taken of the tail of his dog Cash. And he says he is 100%
Before we play the
sure.
video, I want to ask a couple more questions.
This is the Snapchat video. He's going to identify
When
the
you-
voices on those video.
Received that phone call from Paul at the kennels
Someone
at 8:40 p.m. on the night of June 7th, 2021. Did Paul sound normal to you?
I'm just pausing it so technology can stop being silly, and hopefully that will fix it. And yes, just making a little point about Nightbot here, that he has little hands but a big heart, but he also has these cute little ear tassels here. Let me see if I can pull them up on the screen so we can all admire. So he can count to 2 using his ear tassels. Cute. Love you, Nightbot.
He did.
Did he sound stressed to you?
He did not.
He does. He
Did he
seems
sound
like a
like
good
someone
kid.
was there that he didn't know?
No, sir.
Did he sound worried?
He did.
Did you hear Maggie's voice?
I did.
Did she sound stressed?
She did.
Did she sound worried?
No,
Did she sound normal?
she did.
Did she sound like there was somebody there she didn't know?
No, sir.
Or that she was in danger?
Creighton?
No, sir.
Did you hear Alex's voice?
What I thought was his voice at the time, yeah.
He's still careful with that, which is very interesting to me. There's no getting around that video.
When Maggie or Paul would go down to the kennels, how would they usually get there?
They would drive. Sometimes Miss Maggie would walk or ride a bike. If they had an ATV or a golf cart in the yard, sometimes they would drive that.
Paul more likely to be one to ride or one to drive down there?
Most of the time, he would drive.
Was it usual for the family to go down there sometimes and let the dogs out?
It was.
Did you ask them?
Let them run around?
That's correct.
Did
Let
Miss
the-
Maggie like to do that?
I'm sorry.
She did.
I would just like to alleviate some of the very unpleasant feelings I'm feeling. I'm very sad for this kiddo.
To your
And I
knowledge,
just
for
want
guns to
somebody
be
to
left
ask
down at
who let the
kennels.
dogs out, just because I need a
Sometimes there
minute.
was, yeah.
The defense's cross is going to be very gentle. It should be very gentle. The defense's cross should not be aggressive. The video is what it is.
Play that video for
The
you,
voices
okay?
are what they are. The cross is going to be about what a loving family they were. That's what it should be about. Thank you all for just going with me on the who let the dogs out. I appreciate. I just needed we all just need a minute. I hope someone just gives Rogan a big old hug.
Get it. Get that.
They're playing the Snapchat video.
Quick, Cash. Hey, he got burgers now. Hey, Bubba. It's a kitty. This is a chicken. Come here, Cash. Cash. Quick.
He's not looking at the video. He didn't want to look at the video.
Watched back in November 2022.
It is.
Where's that video taken?
At the kennels.
You recognize your dog?
I do.
You recognize Paul's voice?
Yes, sir.
You recognize Maggie's voice?
Yes, sir.
All leading.
You recognize Alex's voice?
Yes, sir.
100%.
Yes, sir.
Can you point out Alex Murdaugh, the person whose voice
All
you
leading.
recognize in this video in this courtroom, please?
Sitting right there in a gray jacket.
Please let the record reflect he's identified the defendant. Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Nothing further.
Moving on to cross-examination. I hear either come here, Paul, or get him, Paul. I don't know if they're trying to talk about the dog. I'm assuming they're talking about the dog with the chicken.
Good afternoon, Rogan.
How you doing?
We've met many times, haven't we?
Yes, sir.
Because you were representing Paul in the boat crash,
Tell the jury more about
and you spent a
Paul,
lot of
please.
time with this family.
What did y'all like to do together?
We already covered
We
that.
love
correct?
hunting, fishing, just hanging around. We love staying at the beach, going to the sandbars. He could get along with just about anybody.
He's not mentioned boating once. I'm not
Is he one of your
surprised.
best friends?
He is.
Is this a hard day for you?
Yes, sir.
And did you live one summer in the cabin there on the property?
Yes, me, Buster, and Nolan lived in the cabin, and Paul was there a lot.
Right. And when you got a house of your own, I mean, it was just right down the road, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Down Moselle Road?
Yes, sir.
It was your grandparents' house or you moved into?
That's correct.
And, but before that, Ms. Maggie and Big Red over here, Mr. Alec, I mean, they treated you as family, didn't they?
That's correct. They did.
And
They treated you as family.
Paul was like a brother to you?
Yes, sir.
Is an interesting way to phrase it.
And Ms. Maggie was like a second mom to you?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Alec was like a second dad?
Yes, sir, he was.
You can hear it in his voice.
And could you tell the jury what you observed Alec's relationship was, starting with you? What was his relationship with you?
And we knew
We had
this
a
was
good
going to come up.
relationship. I mean, he treated me like one of his own. We had fun. He gave me permission to hunt the property.
Did you have permission to come and go and down to the shop?
I did.
Did you have permission to use any of the equipment?
Yes, sir.
And did you help out on the farm for game management and stuff?
I did.
Okay. You talked to
As opposed to
Paul,
testifying.
I think the
And
record
Bubba's
showed
the
you had
dog. He's the yellow
4-minute
dog.
telephone conversation before that video was taken, which you didn't receive until law enforcement showed you. But you remember, you talked to Paul for about 4 minutes, right?
That's correct.
And I believe when you were interviewed, you said it sounded like Mr. Alec had pulled up or something to that effect, driven up. Do you remember that?
No, I don't ever remember hearing a vehicle.
Okay.
I just remember hearing a third voice.
Okay. And the next day, excuse me, was it the 8th? The next day you went over and met with and went into the house at Moselle and you saw Maggie's parents?
That's correct.
And that's when Grandma, Miss Brandstetter, asked you
Maggie's mother.
if you heard Maggie's voice?
Yes.
Okay. And you told her you did?
Told her I talked to Paul and heard Miss Maggie.
And you told them in front of everybody that you had thought you'd heard Alex's voice too, right?
That's correct.
And he didn't push back whatsoever?
No, sir.
What was Alex's demeanor when you first saw him after the murders and days after? What?
He was just real distraught, sad. Just tore up about it.
Did he cry a lot?
Yes, sir.
Did he hug you?
He did.
Did he cry?
Yes, sir.
Did you cry?
Yes, sir.
Don't try to make this young man cry, Jim.
Did you cry the day after and the day after? I mean,
That was really sad.
Of course he was. He is holding it together, man. Let him hold it together. I think Alex absolutely knew about the Snapchat video, and part of the reason this makes me so uncomfortable is that Jim is also a family friend. They all know each other, and it's just And Jim was one of Paul's defense attorneys on the boat crash case. And so to be cross-examining his best friend about it is such an
On this,
uncomfortable conflict for me.
Video, you've been around Alec, Maggie, and Paul most all your life. But was there did you notice any signs of distress or anxiety or anything out of the ordinary?
I did not.
And you've been around Maggie and Alec and their whole family a lot?
Almost all of my life, yes, sir.
And would you see Alec openly show his display of affection and love to Maggie?
Yes, sir.
And from your observation, they have a close, good relationship?
That's correct.
And they were loving to each other and to Paul and Buster and their friends, correct?
That's correct.
And can you think of any circumstance that you can envision, knowing them as you do, where Alec would brutally murder Paul and Maggie?
Not that I can think of.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Anything further?
Could you imagine Alex stealing from his housekeeper's children? Could you imagine? I think this opens the door.
Okay, great time to pause because I was literally going to say that this opens the door, and then Emily said it. So that last question there. So the title of this part one here of this for this series. So I called this the defense opens the door, because that's really what we're looking at here at the beginning of this trial. And this was the very first time of all the times. They opened the door many times. But with that last question of, can you think of any reason why? And they'll start discussing this here later on in this same episode. But that was a big slip up on their part. Also, side note, we were talking about places in North Carolina and Lenore came up, and I just wanted to say, because I think it's funny, I lived in Boone for 11 years, and all my friends and I, my college friends, we were, all music majors, but we would have wedding gigs in Lenore, but we always had a joke. And whenever we would have to go there, we would say, if someone's like, oh, where's your wedding gig at? We would say, oh, it's in Lenoir, as the French say. Anyway, just thought that was funny, but we'll carry on.
To ask,
You were asking questions about the
I think
sheds
it
being
opens the door
unlocked.
to ask about other things he
All they
doesn't know.
complained to you, people were up there stealing all kinds of stuff all the time.
I think the
I
defense
was
just
never
opened the
aware
door.
of people stealing anything.
I think he opened the door.
When you talked to Paul and heard Maggie and Alec at 8:40, was there any problem with that voice call, or did it come through just fine? The reception was good.
The call came through, yes.
And the last conversation you had with Paul was he was going to do what if the FaceTime didn't work?
Hey,
Send me a
Creighton,
video.
I think you need to approach.
That's correct.
I think you need to ask the court if you can ask about not the Mallory Beach case, about Gloria Satterfield, and I think you need to ask the
heard
court if
that
you can
video
ask
and you
about
hear
the
three
suicide
voices,
for
is that
hire.
correct?
Well, I think you need to ask,
Maggie, Paul, and Mr. Alec?
In the video, yes, sir.
because he might not be able to imagine Alec murdering his kids, but did he imagine Alec
When you're
hiring someone to kill him on the side of the road? I think the defense opened the door for that with asking him. I don't think they're going to go there, but I think the defense opened the door for it.
Down there at the sheds, did they have outdoor lighting down there?
Yes, sir, they did.
And if all that was on, could you see all that lighting from the house?
Yes, you would be able to see that there were lights on. from the
That's a
house.
good question.
If those lights were on, it'd be pretty well lit up, is that right?
If all of them were, yes.
That's the first time we've heard that. Because when police showed up, it was dark.
You were asked about
So
the
who
boat
turned off
wreck.
the lights at the kennel?
Were you aware that Paul had been charged in that boat wreck?
I was.
Were you aware that Alex Murdaugh had been sued in that boat wreck?
I was.
What was your perception of
Oh,
Alex's wealth? Did you believe he was a fairly wealthy man?
Yes, sir.
would you say he was rich AF? He's not going to ask that.
How long have you known Alex Murdaugh?
Pretty much all my life.
As you sit here today, did you really know him?
You open the door.
Yes, I know Mr. Ellett.
But as you sit here today, do you really know him?
Yes, I know Mr. Ellett.
Thank you.
We're going to first go look at the video, the Snapchat video that was just testified to, because the video has been released by the court and it is up on, well, literally everyone's Twitter. So this is the goodest boy, and he is, back with his owner. He was staying there, and it makes sense why he was staying there. So this is Cash, the chocolate lab.
Get it. Get it.
This is him going into the pen where Cash is to try to get a video of the tail, because he thought something was up with Cash's tail.
Quit, Cash. Quit.
No diagnosing the puppers. Now I hear water. Do y'all hear the water? Now I hear the water.
Cash.
It looks wet in there.
He's got a bird in his mouth. Bubba. Hey, Bubba.
So to me, it sounds like Maggie says he's got a bird in his mouth, and Alex says Bubba, because Bubba, we now know, is the dog's name. So with more context, this all makes more sense. Yes, he is the goodest boy. Absolutely. Maggie might be spraying down the kennels. So, and the floor is wet. They might have been cleaning out the kennels.
It's a guinea. It's a chicken.
So I hear Maggie say it's a guinea. Then I hear Paul say it's a chicken. And then further away, you can hear Alex saying it's a chicken. So I'm going to back up just a little bit.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth. Bubba. Hey, Bubba. It's a guinea. It's a chicken. Come here, Bubba. Come here, Cash. Come here, Bubba. Cash. Quit.
And I can hear him in this video better saying, "Come here, Bubba. Come here, Bubba." Probably trying to get the chicken out of his mouth. And when law enforcement arrives, there is a chicken up in they got the chicken back from Bubba at some point. Dog. But I'm going to watch one more time.
Get it. Get it. Quit, Cash. Quit. It's okay. Come here.
There's something there that I didn't hear. Water.
Post it. Cash. Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth. Bubba. Hey, Bubba. It's a guinea. It's a chicken. Come here, Bubba. Come here, Cash. Come here, Bubba. Cash. Quit.
Your Honor, one matter I'd like to address with the court during and throughout the questioning that the defense has been doing, and including one question that was asked here today about any
Open the door.
Why,
Open the door.
Alec may
Open the door.
One of the issues that's still outstanding.
Okay, so I was just pausing right there. So before they get into this, where they're talking about the door. So I was just going to say about Cousin Eddie. So I haven't really heard that many updates on him recently. I think the last time I heard anything, Amy Zimmercheck, aka Amy Z, came on STS Nation. I mean, she's been on there recently, but the last time she mentioned anything about Cousin Eddie, I think was a few months ago, but it was just in reference to the fact that they were talking about the side of the road and her theory, which I agree with. Not to get too ahead of the different theories, but since this was related to Cousin Eddie, her theory is that Alec, his plan was to kill Cousin Eddie. That was her thought. That was what she had said. As far as I know, he's still in custody. But yeah, that was what she said about the last I recall her saying was just that in reference to his plan being to shoot Cousin Eddie. So yes. Okay, let's carry on. Oh, and also I just want to say that for all of you guys in the chat who have been suffering from different different illnesses, health issues, what have you, I really appreciate that there's so much compassion amongst everybody that's here in the chat. I think it's one of the nice things about having a smaller chat, as we were saying, because it's just so much easier to have conversation and to communicate. And I just appreciate that everybody's so supportive and positive. So, all right, now we can carry on.
Is issues of the financial
Yes.
motives that exist. And, obviously the state has already made a case as to the admissibility of that information, but I believe clearly to add to that, the defense through their questioning has opened the door
Yes.
to that. And so
Yes,
this,
Creighton.
witness, has some information to start that. And I think that we've sort of gone through the looking glass on that very issue, Your Honor.
Yes, I agree.
Very briefly, we fully briefed this. There are a very limited number of circumstances where
You opened
the
the
financial
door.
information would come in. Simply asking this young man, who they asked about his relationship with Alec and Paul and everybody, could you conceive of, I think we said, are there any circumstance under which
They need to roll it
that
back.
you might kill Paul and Maggie? And he said no. That didn't open the door to any financial.
Oh, the fuck it didn't.
Crime that he may have
Any
committed.
circumstance.
And
Any
again,
circumstance.
the admissibility of that financial information, those financial misdeeds, is not, this, this motive, by the way, is the most ludicrous. He's about to be discovered as having stolen some money that afternoon. So he goes home and butchers his wife and son to distress.
You argued that before.
But what I'm saying is,
The court cut
This
him right off.
idea-
You argued it before, you've called it ludicrous before, and you're now repeating that same argument.
He's not having it.
that I've said that. My point is, no door's been opened, and if we're going to have a full discussion on this,
Yep.
you indicated you needed factual basis.
Let's discuss.
There's been no factual basis established.
You established the factual basis
Yes, sir.
by
Your Honor, again,
Putting the
we have
door.
argued this, and I'm not going to repeat the various arguments that I've made. I think.
Unlike
we
my
have,
learned colleague.
I do, just to sort of summarize a little bit, we do have a specific
Unlike my
confrontation that
esteemed
day.
friend.
We also have the pendency of that hearing, and for the jury to understand that, we have to understand the extent of what is about to be exposed and what that actually means for him, the prospect of losing everything in life without parole. Will Loving. And he is one of Paul's friends. He's mostly here to talk about firearms and the shell casings and things like that. But he also will talk about a little bit about the boat case, about the pressures on the family, about selling the house in Hampton, and the fact that that there were financial pressures because of that boat
The
case.
defense asked about that too.
That they were having to deal with. And, I've made it clear to the defense as well as to Your Honor that before we went into subject matter like that, that we would, of course, certainly alert the court. For this particular witness, that would be
the court's alerted.
questioning that I intend to ask that witness.
The court is alerted.
This witness, he's my witness. Any information he has
He's
about
my
financial
witness?
pressure or the reasons they sold the house would be solely based upon hearsay, and it certainly didn't come from any conversations with the defendant. He has no independent knowledge of any of that. So aside from the overall 404B evidentiary rule.
Chanley, you're
there's
missing it.
no
Sit
basis
down, girl. It's
of-
getting, the tea is
This witness
hot.
doesn't have any actual knowledge of that.
Chanley, the tea is hot.
We'll proceed with the testimony. I'll rule based on any objections I hear.
The court's like, we're going step by step. So this is another one of
Will
Paul's
Loving,
friends.
Loving.
Loving, how you doing today?
I'm good.
Sure doesn't want to be in court.
Tell the jury just a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to high school? College?
Sure is uncomfortable.
What you do for a living?
I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina. I went to high school at AC Flora. I graduated from Georgetown Tech with a forestry degree. Pursued that for a few years. Now I'm working down in Charleston for a marine construction company. That's about what I'm doing now.
What year did you graduate from high school?
Graduated high school in 2015.
Prepare to feel
and
old.
Graduated
I do.
from Roy Georgetown in 2020.
Where are you living these days? Just
I'm
generally.
living in Charleston.
Have you ever, did you ever, over the course of your life, get to know Paul Murdaugh?
Yes, I did.
And tell me, when was that, roughly?
I met Paul when I was probably 15 years old, down at Edisto. He was probably 13.
This is Will, not
And,
Wills. There are two.
You know, our friendship just met on the beach one day.
There are two
I
friends.
met Paul, but we did pretty much everything together down at the beach whenever I was there and he was there. You know, we'd go hang out on the beach, we'd go on the boat, go fish, or, you know, just hang out.
Somebody mentioned the boat.
When you met him at Edisto, do you know where Paul was staying?
Yes, Paul was staying at his beach house at Edisto.
Up at the kennels, up at the shed area, was it common for firearms to be up there?
You know, they were up there from time to time, but I don't think there were really any kept up there, no, sir.
On June 7th, 2021, did you ever have any conversation with Paul or communication with him?
Yes, I talked to him around dinner time. I was cooking dinner in the apartment that we were staying in, and he called me about wanting to get a hot tub for the house that we were about to move into. And then he sent me a Snapchat a little bit after that. And
This is the earlier Snapchat. Oh.
What's the Snapchat of?
It was of him and his dad looking at the trees and stuff that they had planted. They had one swoop down that obviously wasn't doing too good.
What was his dad wearing?
But it was just a video of them looking at trees.
And you watched that video on your phone or something like that?
This is the earlier
Yes, sir.
phone, the earlier video. I wondered when that video was coming in. Here it is.
Over the years, as you got to know Paul, did you also get to know his family as well?
Maybe.
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you
Maybe.
get to know Miss Maggie?
Yes, sir, I did.
To your knowledge, did Miss Maggie like to go down to the kennels?
Yes, she did.
And how would she get down there, do you know?
Sometimes she would use her bike or her car or walk. She liked to walk their two labs around a lot around the property. So it was not uncommon for her to go down there.
And what would she like to do when she went down there?
She would go down and look at the dogs and mess with the dogs. A lot of times she liked to ride her bike, you know, right before it got dark, you know, on a sunset or something.
That's how Alec
But
put it too.
She was a dog lover for sure.
That's exactly how Alec put it. She was a
Did she
dog
go
lover.
in the daytime? Or did she go at
She
night?
liked to go mess around with the dogs. That's exactly how Alec put it to the police.
I only saw her go during the daytime most of the time. I mean, she might be down there once it got dark, but I don't think she would go down there after dark.
Would she go down there at dusk?
Let me ask you a little bit about Paul. What was his cell phone usage like?
He used his cell phone a lot.
Is he one to respond to you pretty quickly, typically?
Yes, sir. He would respond pretty fast.
You know where he kept it when he had it on him? What pocket he kept it in?
No, I do not. I mean, I know he kept it in one of his front pockets. I would have remembered if he kept it in his back pockets, but I don't know which one it was.
No, Stacey, I don't think he was coached. I think that's just what it was.
Were
Maggie
you,
liked to go mess around with the dogs. I just think it just rings it more true as you've got multiple
How'd you
people
find out
saying the
about
same
murders?
thing. I think that's just true.
I was called numerous times in the middle of the night. I finally woke up to one around midnight. I think it was 12:07 if I remember right. And it was a cousin of Paul's, and she told me about everything. And I was in the apartment at the time, and you know nobody really knew what was going on, so I got out of the apartment pretty quick. Drove to my parents' house, talked with them for a minute, and we had some friends that were all awake in Charleston, so I drove straight down to Charleston in the middle of the night.
Did you ever go to Moselle in the aftermath of everything?
Yes, sir. I believe I went on that previous Wednesday and saw the family.
Previous?
Did you ever have a conversation with Alec?
I did.
Did you talk to him about any conversations that you had with Paul that night?
No, I didn't. We mostly just grieved.
Did you ask him about what he was doing that night or what happened or the events of that night at all?
No, I did not.
The night scope wasn't used to kill Maggie. It was the replacement.
What
But it was dusk when this happened. It
What's
wasn't
called the
all the
boat
way,
wreck or the boat case.
it wouldn't have been all the way dark yet.
Yes, sir.
The sun would have just been going
And were you
down.
aware that Paul had been charged in that boat case?
Yes, sir, I was.
Were you aware that Alex Murdaugh had been sued in that boat case?
Yes, sir, I was.
He's going to ask about whether Paul had been threatened, I think. Because I would like to know what this friend thought about Paul
Whenever
being
Paul,
threatened. Because he's going to be living with him. Were you afraid of living
did you
with
ever
him if
talk
he's
to Paul
getting
about the boat
threats?
case?
Not much, you know, I didn't want to bring up something like that.
Well, if he's getting threats and you're going to live together, wouldn't
You
you want to
mentioned
know?
that the family had an Edisto Beach house, is that right?
That's correct.
Had the Moselle property?
That's correct.
Did they have another property at one point in time?
Yes, they did. They had their house in Hampton.
Did they ultimately sell that property?
Yes, they did.
What was your understanding as to why they sold that property?
You can answer if you know.
It was just through the grapevine to help pay for some of the lawsuits that they were under.
The prosecution's treading lightly.
The objection is sustained.
You say through the grapevine, did you ever have a conversation or were privy to a conversation with Alec about that?
No, sir.
When you, did you have a conversation or were you privy to a conversation with Paul about that?
We talked about the house being sold, but I don't believe he ever told me that that's what it was for.
Whenever Paul needed money, who would he get that from?
He would normally text his dad.
When Paul needed money, what did he do? He texted his dad. He's going to tread real lightly, but he's going to keep going for it.
When you talked a little bit about Paul's habits, and you guys had an apartment in Columbia, right?
Yes, sir.
Did Paul like to go to Charleston a lot?
He did.
Charleston's
Like to go to
fun.
Moselle a lot?
He did.
Did he spend time in a lot of different places?
Yeah, he was all over.
He was all over.
Yes, sir.
Happened to be back in Moselle on June 7th, 2021, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Do you know why he was back at Moselle?
All right, one
They did say lawsuits plural.
last thing. Have you had the opportunity to view a video
Here's
at
the
the kennels of
Snapchat.
Moselle?
Yes, sir, I have.
I don't know if
And
this
were you able to
this is going to be him
recognize
voice
any voices on
recognizing
that video?
the Snapchat,
Yes, sir, I was.
the video of the dog. The other video that was sent to him, I think we're going to have to wait for the custodian of records to come in on, which is odd.
All right, Your Honor, this time I'm going to play.
Simply, Cheryl, Paul didn't get kicked out of law school. That was Buster, the brother. Paul was in college. So it was Buster that had gotten kicked out of law school for cheating. I think we're going to get into the kennel video. That now makes more sense now that we've heard it multiple times. He is going to identify the voices in the video. It's kind of nice to see Will have a fond memory of his friend, or at least look like he's having a fond memory of his friend.
Whose voices did you recognize?
You could see him smile.
Paul Murdaugh, Maggie Murdaugh, and Alex Murdaugh.
And how sure are you?
100%.
The person whose voice you recognize on there that you identified as Alex Murdaugh, do you see him in the courtroom here today?
Yes, sir.
Can you point him out for the jury?
He's sitting right there.
Your Honor, please let the record reflect he's identified the defendant.
It does.
Mr. Loving, please answer any questions the defense may have.
Cross-examination. Be interesting to see what they open the door for this time. Alec crying before this video starts is interesting. If anything, I think this opens the door for the prosecution. I think this opens the door for the prosecution to get into more motive evidence. I really do. I think this is going to open the door more. I would want to know if this witness had seen the
Wednesday
video,
after
the video
Paul
interview.
and Maggie were murdered, you went to Moselle, correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
With some friends of yours?
Yes, sir.
I mean, friends of Paul's?
Yes, sir.
How many?
I think 3 of us went.
And how many other people were there, friends of Paul's?
There was a lot of friends of Paul's there.
More than 10?
On Wednesday, I don't know. I don't think so. I think a lot of people were kind of trying to feel out the situation. So just like the closer friends went, but there was probably 10 or so of his friends there when I was there.
I think he wanted to say super
And what
close
was
friends. but I
Alex
get it.
Murdaugh's demeanor on the Wednesday?
He was grieving, crying a lot. I think we all were.
I think you described it that he just couldn't talk. You remember that?
Yeah, it was pretty hard to talk when, he came and grabbed me and 2 other guys, and we just kind of had a big hug, and it was pretty tough for him to make words.
Jim Griffin is again trying to ask questions
he
like he
crying?
wasn't there, but he was there.
Yes, sir.
When this was
Were you
going on.
crying?
Yes, sir.
Everybody there crying?
Yes, sir.
They were all grieving. So we're going on redirect. I think they opened the door.
To your video, if you would, please.
Jim wasn't in the audio. Jim was there in Moselle in the days after the murder.
Still at the very end, please.
So Jim was there. Holy. Ugh.
Who's that guy in the green shirt? Do you know?
It's Chris Wilson.
Do you know Chris Wilson's relationship to Alec Wilson or Alex Murdaugh?
Yeah, I think they're best friends.
Oh.
Friends.
Oh dear.
Best friends should.
Okay, I'm pausing it because this is a huge moment. So again, just going through all the moments in this particular episode where the defense is opening the door again. So what just happened in that at the end of that cross was they played that birthday video. This was so interesting because this was the point that Jim was trying to make was, oh, look at how great they were having the birthday party, blah, 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 loving family. That was what he was thinking it was going to do for the defense's case. He could not have anticipated Creighton's move, which was so smart because that 100%, I don't know how he didn't anticipate it because Chris Wilson is in that video. But I mean, it's just brilliant because this was a way to get Chris Wilson brought in, right? So that's what happens here. And by bringing Chris Wilson in, bam, many doors, all the doors. This is huge. The moment when Creighton is like, who's that guy? What does he say in the green shirt? I'm going to rewind it a smidge so we can hear it again. But I think he's in the green shirt. I mean, it's even rewatching it, I'm just like, wow. That's why I put door down there on the video. And also I was going to say, about Buster, just in the chat here. So Buster being kicked out for cheating. He was kicked out of law school for cheating. So the thing is, though, is that cheating is the Murdaugh way. So I think if anything, they were, they would have wanted him to finish, become a lawyer like the rest of the family or whatever, right? Finish law school. But I don't think that cheating bothered them because that's what they do. So while it would make sense for other families to be like, yeah, you're not the golden child because you got kicked out for cheating, I don't think that was the case with them. And from what I understand about Paul didn't go to college and he was just kind of partying and stuff. And I feel like we hear in testimony from his friends saying that he was kind of still trying to find his way, but he really loved the outdoors and stuff like that. But yeah, he wasn't interested in going to law school. So I do think that Buster was kind of the golden child, also being the oldest in the South. Well, okay, with a family like this, they follow a lot of traditions, and just from growing up down here, the oldest child is considered to be, and oftentimes, this doesn't make any sense to me, but this is just what happens. But like, well, okay, think about like going back to like going back to well, I guess I'll say like Tudor England, like going back to like the 16th century, 15th century, right? And I'm sure earlier, but just I can actually speak to the fact that like the oldest son was like the favored one, right? They were going to have the heir to the throne, right? So they had all the different privileges, right? So it was like a big deal. Whoever's like the firstborn son and the oldest son. So I think that somehow centuries later has maintained a thing through some cultures. So I don't know if that helps answer the question. But I do think that in this family, in this society where they're at, the oldest son would still be, and you can see it too by the way they pass down names, because Randy, as in Alex oldest brother, so he's got a number of siblings. The oldest is Randy, and he's the fourth. Randolph is the fourth Randolph Murdaugh. So that name gets passed to the firstborn son of each generation. So that's why he's the fourth. And so for whatever reason, also the tradition was that the Randolph were called Buster. So, and I actually don't even know if Buster's real name is Randolph, but his name is Buster, which apparently is like interchangeable. So anyway, again, the passing down of the certain name in the family, like lineage or whatever, also, again, that follows straight out of like 15th century. Crazy, right? How things haven't really changed in some, right? Yeah, patriarchy, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna play the video because I'll go off on a tangent about Tudor England otherwise. So I'll rewind a smidge too, because this is such an epic moment.
Still at the very end, please.
So Jim was there. Holy. Ugh.
Who's that guy in the green shirt? Do you know?
That's Chris Wilson.
Do you know Chris Wilson's relationship to Alec Wilson or Alex Murdaugh?
Yeah, I think they're best friends.
Oh.
Friends.
Oh dear.
Best friends should do each other right. Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
Oh, big door. Big door opened.
You were asked about
Door. The
when
door's
you
been
found
opened.
out about
Opened.
the murders.
Opened. Here's the
Talked
door.
to some people, and then you kind of hightailed it out of your place, right?
Yes, sir.
Because you were scared, or at least thinking about the possibility of some sort of harm. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Oh
It
boy.
was a shock for everyone, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
It stopped everything in its tracks, didn't it?
Yes, sir.
And everybody was worried about this family and what was going on and what had happened. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Anything else people were worried about went out the window. They were all focused on Alec at that moment, were they not? And themselves. Is that correct?
I mean, I think
Creighton
they were
is-
focused on everybody that had anything to do with it.
Creighton is running through the
Anything that had
door.
anything to do with this family. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
He's kicking it. Hold on. The jury doesn't know who Chris Wilson is yet, chat. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. Somebody came in like a wrecking ball. Creighton is just
Showing the Snapchat video, you were also asked about another Snapchat video that you saw the day of the murders.
Yes, sir.
And what was on that video?
It was a video of Alex and his son riding around looking at
I'm just going to answer this question here. So the door was open because he was in the video. Essentially, yes. The defense chose to admit that video into evidence. That was their choice. And whenever you do that, you can identify people in the video. And but what was especially relevant here was he said, who was he? He was Chris Wilson. And then he asks a non-leading question, right? So this is great. And this was probably, I can't imagine this was planned. So this was a really good job done by Creighton, because he was able to elicit this testimony using open-ended non-leading questions. So he said, and who is Chris Wilson? Now, he doesn't know what Will Loving's going to say, because this wasn't planned. Will Loving could have said whatever, but he knew what he was going to say in a sense, because literally anyone would know he was his best friend. So this just sets it up perfectly, because he says, who is he? Who's Chris Wilson? Open-ended question. Will Loving answers his best friend. And then Creighton uses that to say, well, best friends should do each other right, shouldn't they? So he's working his way here. See all these doors, because now this is getting into the financial stuff involving Chris Wilson, which again, that brings in a whole slew of other stuff as well. So hopefully that makes sense. And they will argue about, when I say argue, you guys know what I mean, how lawyers argue, right? But they have, after Will Loving finishes his testimony, they go through all this, and Creighton, explains why certain things should come in and stuff. But yeah, hopefully that makes sense. I'm just reading y'all's comments here. Yeah, the Busters and the Rudolphs. Yeah. The yeah, I know. You guys are cracking me up. Okay, yeah, we'll get back to the video here.
Trees that had fallen over on the tractor or on the golf cart.
Was it a short clip?
Yes, sir, it was.
Chris Wilson is the one that Alec was confronted about at work the morning of the murders. There's a much more complex history there, but Chris Wilson is an attorney.
Sorry, I just remembered too, the other thing, Chris Wilson, of course, like in my mind, I'm like, Chris Wilson brings in everything, but like, I'm thinking of it all at once. Yeah. So the other main thing, right? The other big, huge door beyond the financial crimes, Chris Wilson brings in, the biggest thing of all, the biggest bombshell of all, which is the side of the road. Like, that's how they get that in, is through Chris Wilson. So it's like by getting through, Chris Wilson's like a link to the financial crimes, and the financial crimes are linked to Chris Wilson, but Chris Wilson and the financial crimes link to each other and link to the side of the road. So all that, and of course, eventually we get into the trial within a trial within a trial, which is like my favorite part of this entire trial. So, yeah, you guys were making me laugh out loud. So anyway, yeah, side of the road. Okay, let's keep going.
Who is wrapped up in some of these financial things with Alec.
I have State's Exhibit 306.
And the check, the missing money from the law firm, all happened that day. All happened June 7th. But the jury doesn't know that yet. So it perks up my mind, because I've been following all
Back over, I'm going to play that tree video.
the ancillary cases. But the jury
What time
needs
do
to
you
know.
recall receiving this video, to the best of your recollection?
It was later in the afternoon. I believe it was after I cooked dinner, probably around 7 o'clock, sometime in there.
I'll tell you what, in the summer, 7 o'clock sometimes feels like the afternoon, because it stays light so late. So that's fair to me.
That video you saw?
Yes, it is.
That was on the afternoon or the evening of June 7th,
Do we
2021.
see anyone
That's correct.
in the video, or do we just see the trees? So at 7 p.m., they're riding around laughing on the property.
Clothes that he was wearing, at least in that video you saw, on the evening of June 7th, 2021.
Yeah, those are the clothes I saw in the video.
We can't see Creighton. Can you spell it out for the class? Can you help?
Long pants and a shirt,
Yep. Yes, sir.
and those particular shoes.
Yes, sir.
It's giving he's wearing
You watched
different
that video
clothes
in real
vibe.
time when it came in from Paul's phone that evening, is that correct?
That is correct.
So he's wearing different clothes. Though, if he's riding around, he could have changed clothes for dinner. He never tells the police he
Were,
changes clothes.
Asked about the relationship that you observed between Alec
He had
and
shorts on when the
Paul
police
and Alec
came.
and Maggie. Is that correct?
That is correct.
To your eye, it was a very good relationship. Is that correct?
He's going back through that door
Certainly a
now.
Good relationship in my point of view.
Did you know anything about Alec's finances?
And here he goes.
No, I did not.
Did you know anything about his law practice?
No, I did not.
Did you know anything about where he gets his money?
No, I did not.
Did you know anything about where he was spending his money?
No, I did not.
Did you know anything about what his bank account balances were?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you know anything about the debt that he was carrying? Do you know anything about that?
No, sir.
Did you know the specific things that were going on?
Jim
in the
Griffin's
boat
on high
case
alert. Look at him.
The week that Paul and Maggie were murdered.
He's ready.
No, sir.
He's ready to
Do you know
object.
anything about civil discovery and how it can expose financial information?
No, sir.
Do you know anything at all about him being confronted
gonna
on
object.
June 7th, 2021 about,
Object.
Right in the middle of the question.
did you know anything about him being confronted
At work
the
on June
morning of
7th?
June 7th, 2021 about $792,000 of missing fees from his law firm?
Objection, Your Honor. But totally improper.
Objection is overruled.
Did you know anything about that?
No, I did not.
Creighton
Any
is
of the
like,
facts of those things that I just asked you about.
No, sir.
Creighton just Miley Cyrus through the damn door.
Nothing further.
Yeah, I bet he has nothing further.
Anything further?
I would just stay down. Woo!
Okay, so I'm remembering now. I ended that part on a woo. Okay, I'm glad that actually, because it gives me an opportunity. So I wanted to say a couple things about Deb V. Heard. So I don't know if y'all have heard, but actually one of the subscribers who's in the chat quite often here was actually alerted me. I didn't know about it, but alerted me that Elaine, I don't know if y'all have heard, she has come out. I think it's like an HBO documentary that's premiering tomorrow, I think. But she's coming out and like saying that she believes Amber and all this stuff. And basically who knows why, but like backing up the whole thing, which is so funny because everyone always asks and contemplates the question of like, did Elaine really believe her? Did her attorneys really believe her? Blah, blah, blah. And now I guess we're getting an answer to that question. I don't know if you guys have heard about that, but that's insane. And I have no idea why Elaine is choosing to do that. But the other thing I wanted to mention related to Deb V. Heard real quick is that this morning there was the sentencing for Ruby, Frankie, and Jody Hildebrandt. And Law and Crime had a feed up waiting for it to start or whatever. And I can't remember if it was Law and Crime or Law and Crime Trials, but I don't ever chat in that chat because that's just like why. But I was just seeing it scroll by, and I had no idea. I don't know if I'm probably the last one to find this out, but Morgan Tremaine is a mod for them, which I just had no clue. And this is the same Morgan Tremaine, obviously, that was in the trial. And so from the last live stream I did, which was the finals of the best or funniest Deb V. Heard trial moments and sidebar moments, the poll and everybody voted. The winner overall, number one, was what I called the 15 minutes of fame clip, which was the Morgan Tremaine Elaine clip where she says he wants his 15 minutes of fame. So that clip won. And so anyway, I saw him in that chat and yeah, Spicy Draco. Yes. So, and I was like, what on earth? I had no idea like that. There he is, a mod, And so I just like, I I had no idea. I'll actually read it. I took screenshots. I don't think there's a way I can pull it up on here, but I took screenshots of this in the chat because I was like, this is insane. So I tagged him and I said, just letting you know that I did a whole Depp versus Heard funniest moments showdown, and your quote 15 minutes of fame end quote clip with Elaine was voted #1 funniest moment of the whole trial. And he replied and he tagged me and said at my name, where's my trophy? So I was like, this is hilarious. But yes, so now you guys know he is a mod on Law and Crime, and he was there. And I responded to the trophy question and I said, great point. I need to get on that, basically. And then I was like, you had stiff competition because you were going up against like Spiegel and then the schizophrenia with Morgan Knight. But oh yeah, you saw my screenshots. Yeah, so I put the screenshots of it on Discord just because I was like, this is crazy. So yeah, so the Elaine thing is nuts, and I don't have HBO or whatever, but I'm sure there will be people on YouTube covering it. And I haven't heard Emily mention anything about that yet. Like, I'm wondering if word hasn't even really spread enough about it, because I feel like that Emily will freak out. But anyway, yeah, the other Morgan was a very close second. So, but what I wanted to do next was play. I have a really short little clip here that I put together. It includes the other Snapchat. Oh my God, Snapchat. Snapchat video of Alec with the tree, as they say, cantilevering. But one of the wonderful things about this trial, there's so many, but one of them is we learned a lot of new words, or I learned a lot of new words. I've never heard of things cantilevering. I've never learned about dove field, buckshot, birdshot, turkey shot, all this stuff. It was very educational. But the cantilevering tree, so we have that one, and then it's going to go right into a little clip I made of the body cam from when the very first officer showed up on the scene at Moselle, and I just pulled out the parts that I thought were especially interesting because it, well, first of all, it was relevant because of the theme of the whole thing of opening the door. Part of what we'll get into in the next episode is that part of that was because of Alex's own statements, because like the first thing he says to the officer is boat case, right? So there's that. But then there's also him. Well, we'll watch it and then we'll discuss it. How about that? Because it's short. So, oh, and I'm just looking at this comment here. Yeah, there's I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know who they are, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's people who do an entire channel for Depp Heard. Yeah, and it's interesting because it's like, I don't know what all they've been able to do, the sidebars, but like other than that, but yeah, okay. Anyway, let's go ahead and watch this other clip.
Better than it was, ain't it?
Got a Whiskey Fox, Whiskey Mike, both gunshot wounds to the head.
So that's like super quick. So let's just watch it again, because I was like I didn't even really see it. I was still trying to figure out how to mute my mic. So let's replay that one.
Better than it was, ain't it?
Got a Whiskey Fox.
Sorry, I was muted. So there it is. So basically Paul's laughing and Alex says, better than it was, right? So, and the other significance of that video is the fact that of what he's wearing. And that comes up a lot later, especially with Blanca's testimony about the outfits. Because he had like 3 different outfits that day, but he didn't say he changed to law enforcement. Okay, anyway, but let's go ahead and watch this body cam clip.
Fox, Whiskey Mike, both gunshot wounds to the head.
Sir, I want to let you know, because of the scene, I did go get a gun and bring it down here.
It's in your vehicle? You have any guns on you at all?
No, sir. It's leaning up against the side of my car.
Okay. You're fine, man. You're fine. Turn around for me.
I don't have any.
Okay. Yes, sir. I see that. Okay. This is your wife and son?
And son.
Okay.
It's bad. It's bad. Check the pulses.
Yes, sir. This is the firearm you brought from inside the house?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I went and got. This is a long story. My son was in a boat wreck a few months back. He's been getting threats. Most of it's been benign stuff we didn't take serious.
Okay.
You know, he's been getting like punched. I know that's somebody. I know that's what it is.
Okay. When did you get home? Right when you called, or did you go to the house first? Where is the house?
I came to the house first. My mom has late stages Alzheimer's, and my dad is in the hospital.
Okay.
I left. I don't know what time. I can go back on my phone and tell you the exact times. Did you check?
Okay. Did I check what?
Did you check them?
We got medical guys that are that's what they're gonna do. Okay.
What are they doing? Can they hurry?
They are. Yes, sir. That gentleman that was out here already, he's one of the battalion chiefs. Okay. How did you pull up? You from back there?
I went to the house and they weren't home, which was odd. I tried to call.
Okay.
And then I knew they had been down here before I left to go to my mom's.
Okay.
And so that is loaded.
Okay.
You might want to unload it. But I mean.
Is this the only firearm with you? This is the only one, or is there any more in the truck?
I believe that's it.
You think that's the only one? Okay.
I'm 99%.
Do you normally
certain that's
have
right.
any other firearms in your vehicle?
I don't, but
Okay.
occasionally there's a pistol in there.
Okay. Just wait right here for me for a second, okay?
653 outside. Go ahead, sir. Well, I've already spoken with Captain Neal. He's got crime scene. He's contacted them. He's also going to give us the assistance of a couple of field agents. Roger that.
No. You can check them. They're dead, aren't they? They are dead, aren't they?
Just turn on those.
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
Randy. All are dead. Where are you now?
That.
It was earlier tonight. I don't know the exact time, but
Okay.
I left. I was probably gone an hour and a half from my mom's, and I saw them about 45 minutes before that.
Okay.
I rode around with Paul for 2 hours this afternoon in the pickup truck.
That's your son, Paul? Okay.
Somebody going to check him?
Yes, sir. They've already checked them.
They did check him?
Yes, sir.
It's official that they're dead?
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I'm very sorry. Gotta call her parents.
What's her name?
Her name is Maggie Murdaugh. How you doing?
Lighting off in the distance.
What are they covering them up?
I got some good.
What's Paul's birthday? That's fine. You said 99?
So I'm gonna rewind a second. This is so interesting when he says there's so much here. I wish y'all could see me as I'm watching this, because I'm just shaking my head and I'm just like, I'm just thinking of so many different things of like that was like 2 minutes of that body cam footage. And it's like, there's so many problems there. So many problems there. So many problems. But the one that I don't think I heard anybody really mention or discuss, it kind of got glossed over because there was so much, right? There were so many problems all over the place, but it was hard to pay attention to all of it, right? But where he says, I'm sorry, it's, if I would, okay, well, let me back it up and then I'll tell you what I'm thinking here. So hold on a sec.
Her name is Maggie Murdaugh.
What's her name?
Gotta call her parents. I'm very sorry.
You're fine.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I'm going to back it up just a little bit further because I want to see exactly the point that I'm getting at is what happened immediately before he starts apologizing. Okay.
No, you're fine. Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
So I think I need to go back a little bit further. I think he's saying, are they sure that they're dead? Hold on.
Yes, sir. They've already checked them.
They did check them?
Yes, sir.
It's official that they're dead?
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay. So here's the thing that is just blowing my mind. I'm not looking at the chat because I'm looking at this video and I'm just like thinking, so I'll read what y'all are saying in a second because I'm paying close attention. So the last thing that Alex says is, and they're sure that they're dead. And the officer confirms. Now, if I was trying to think, okay, well, maybe he's saying I'm sorry because he's like about to wipe the sweat off his face with his shirt. But he says the first I'm sorry right before he lifts his shirt up. They're not coordinated. Here, watch again.
I'm very official.
Okay.
Somebody going to check them?
Yes, sir. They've already checked them.
They did check them?
Yes, sir.
It's official that they're dead?
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I'm very sorry. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, he says I'm sorry before he lifts his shirt up. So I'm curious what you guys think about that. I mean, you know, some people that do like body language and analysis, which, being a musician, I listen to more to what people say. And I don't look at body. I'm actually kind of oblivious to body language and stuff like that. Anyway, but so I think it's interesting though that what they would say, people would usually say, I think anyway, is that that's like what do they call it, like an embedded confession or something like that, like, because what is he apologizing for? I'm curious. Do you guys have any thoughts? Am I missing something? Is there anything happening that he's apologizing for to the officer? Like, what is he apologizing for? What do you guys think? I'm not seeing anything in the chat. You guys, are you there? Because I think this is interesting. Oh, for crying. Okay. I see. Yeah, maybe. Perhaps. But with the first, well, one of the main things about this is just how, he already says that he's checked their pulses, right? Which is debatable whether or not that actually happened, as we'll get to later on in the trial. But if we give him the benefit of the doubt, say, okay, he checked their pulses, part of the reason that, again, I don't want to get too ahead of it, but why that seems really ludicrous later on is because, I think there's a number of witnesses that end up testifying later on that say there is no way that anybody who walked on that scene would have any doubt that these people were dead. Like the fact that, like they said, the fact that he says he checked their pulses was almost, suspicious because it was like, what, so there's that. But all that aside, he says he's checked their pulses, which would mean, again, if we're going to believe him, that would tell him that they're dead, right? So when they show up, well, when he calls 911, he says they're dead. Like when he calls 911, he says he's sure. Let's just start there. He says he's sure that they're dead. So, but what's interesting is that then, so they show up here at the body cam and he's like, yeah, I checked their pulses. But then now, after all that, he's like saying, are they coming? Are they hurrying? When are they going to get here? Do we have somebody coming? As if he's like, where is the first responders? And then the number of times that he asks, are they sure that they're dead? Blah, blah, blah. when he had already said that they were dead a long time ago to the 911 operators and to the officer. He had already said it, but not only that, the officer had confirmed it a number of times, and he still keeps asking. It's so odd. There's so many odd things. And then the other thing is that I'm just reading this. He's crying. I'm reading your comment, tennis girl. Right. Yeah, that's the thing about the crying, right? I know. Again, it's like you could. I agree that you know it almost seems implausible to be apologizing for the crying, right? Um, you know, but yeah. So, but what I was gonna say too is the barking dogs that ends up coming up later as well. When we get into the testimony from, oh, I forget his name, but one of the most endearing witnesses, the neighbor guy who tends to the dogs. He's like my favorite thing in the planet. Like with talking about the story with the roosters and the chickens and the hose and all that. But that I remember with his testimony, that was when it was worth going back and watching these body cam videos again, because there was a lot of significance to the dogs barking. Because I think, well, again, I don't want to get ahead of myself, because during his testimony, it's a really good time to pick apart Alex's story, because if I recall, there's so many things that don't make sense, but one of them is the fact that when the dogs are barking, we know they're already put away, and he doesn't say he puts them away, something like that. But we'll get there. So yeah, there's just so much going on in this video. Yeah, that weird comment, "Hey, how you doing?" All of a sudden in a different character. And just of course the stories, right? The way he talks about the boat case, and then you know the police officer asks him some benign question, and he answers with, they would say like a monologue, right? About let me see if I can find that part, because that part is really good. Let's see here.
I left. I don't know what time. I can go back on my phone and tell you the exact.
Right when you called, or did you go to the house first? Where is the house?
I came to the house first. My mom has late stages off. That's what it is.
Okay. When did you get home? Right when you called, or did you go to the house first? Where is the house?
I came to the house first. My mom has late stages Alzheimer's, and my dad is in the hospital.
Okay.
I left. I don't know what time.
So you guys, the question he was asked, I'm going to back up again. The question he was asked is, where is the house? And he doesn't even answer. This is insane. He says, where is the house? And then we'll hear his answer.
He's been getting like punched. I know that's somebody. I know that's what it is.
Okay. When did you get home? Right when you called, or did you go to the house first? Where is the house?
I came to the house first. My mom has late stages Alzheimer's, and my dad is in the hospital.
So he's asked, where is the house? Alec doesn't say where the house is. He says, I came to the house first. And then he launches into what is clearly, in my opinion, a prepared, obviously, it's an alibi. But it's like, even if you were going to do that, wouldn't you, the smarter thing to do would be like, you would, like the backstory, right? I mean, you guys know, that's why it's just so sus. Like instead of just explaining that he was gone, right? It's all the backstory, just like with the boat case. I mean, it's unprompted, right? Like, and it's not answering a question that he was being asked. If he wanted to do all this, he could have had all these lies, but he would have been a little bit more convincing if he didn't give all this information unless he was asked. But instead, that's how you can tell it's just prepared. Normally what would happen to somebody is they wouldn't have all these details ready to go until they're asked, and then they would have to think about it, and you would see them trying to recall from their memory, oh yeah, but they wouldn't just offer it up. Yeah, it's so fake. It's just yeah. And you're right. The officer did say, did you go to the house first? And then he says, where is the house? That's true. but it still shows that Alec, I keep wanting, Alec is not as, he's not as interested in listening to the questions and answering the questions as he is getting his story out. Because if he was not, like, he's trying so quickly to get this information out, if he was listening to the questions and answering the questions, and the officer says, "Did you go to the house first? Where is the house?" Like a normal person would say, "Oh, the house is over there," and point, and then say, like, "Yes, I did go to the house first." But he completely misses that last question and almost like interrupts him and quickly says, "Yeah, I went to the house first," and then launches into his story. So, yeah, exactly. He was in a hurry to get all out in there. Exactly. He had, I mean, it just reeks of being yeah, so suspicious. Instead of listening, right? He's not really listening. He just wants to talk. So, and the officers answer, the questions are reasonable questions. It's not like these are questions that are worth dodging because of blah blah blah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just that he was so ready to go with his story that he just didn't even bother to listen and answer these basic, innocuous questions. That's the word, innocuous. Yeah. So yeah, yeah. So I think that was all I had ready to go for this one. There's so much more interesting stuff, but we'll have to save it, I guess, for other ones. I actually have, I don't know how I did it so quickly. I already have the next episode ready. And I think that one's called, it's like picking up where this title left off, because the title of this one being "The Defense Opens the Door," and then the next one's like, "But just how far did the door open?" or something like that. And that's already done. And then I'm gonna also pull clips from his first interview inside the cop car that are relevant to it. And then I've actually already got a good portion done of the third episode as well, third part. So yeah. So this was a lot of fun, you guys. And I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Did you guys have any last questions? I hope I didn't miss anything important in the chat, because I've been, watching this video and all that. Yeah, right. Yeah. Subconsciously apologized for, yeah, exactly. The subconsciously apologized for the unaliving. Exactly. And just, I don't mind if you guys, y'all can use whatever, just so you know, y'all can use whatever words in the chat that you want. I'm not worried about, censoring things. It's totally fine. Whatever, I know that we're all used to it from other channels, but just so you know, you can curse, you can say whatever. I don't care. So, so yeah, and I know it's probably, everyone's going to be probably going to, except for, I guess, Janie, you're in a different, it's morning for you? Is it, what time is it for you, Janie? It's probably morning. I know you type slowly, so I'll give you some time to answer. What time is it in Australia? So while I'm waiting for her to answer, I'm going to pull up, let's see real quick where we're at with our ticker here. So we've got sled at 6, boat case, boat wreck, boat crash case. I love how it has so many names. 13, Snapchat 14. So I think that's winning so far. Side of the road, roads and instant has 1. Sirens has 1. These numbers are going to fluctuate and they're going to skyrocket. And it's really, by the way, sirens, just in case y'all are like, what the heck's that? The sirens is referring to the sirens in the background, because throughout the trial, the fire station or whatever is next door. And throughout the trial, you hear sirens a lot. And sometimes they're like really, really, really disruptive. And other times they're in the background. But it's funny just because it's just another one of those things that makes this trial so special. So that's what the sirens is referring to. Oh, it's 4:30 p.m. Wow. Wow. Amazing. That is amazing. So wow. That's like, how many hours is that? Math. Nightbot, help. Well, he can only count to 2. He's not going to be much help here. Okay. All right. So, I don't know when I'll do the next one, but like I said, I have it ready, so it might be soon. We'll see. Maybe tomorrow. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts. Right. It's also Wednesday where, yeah. So 18, thank you, Tesco. If y'all have any thoughts, I might do it tomorrow if I get really excited. I can't do it Thursday, and I probably won't do it Friday. So it'd probably be tomorrow or maybe Saturday night or Sunday night. Kind of just depends. So if like the same time, like if around the same time tomorrow, like I guess wherever you are, it would be around the same time, but tomorrow, like maybe, perhaps. So, so I might just do that for the next one because I'm really excited. So, okay, cool. And let's see, with that whole thing, I think that's it. So now I will do what all the professionals do on LawTube, right? And I'm gonna quote unquote, hopefully if it'll work. All right, I'm gonna roll the outro and see y'all tomorrow.